Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Glad to have you with us. Glad to tell you that Big Willie's is the presenting sponsor of our show today and every day. 1717 South Main. If you don't have your plans set for where you're watching Utah football this weekend, let me submit that is the best place to do it at Big Willie's. Great food menu, great drink menu if you're so inclined, and even if you're just there for a Diet Coke or something, tell them OC sent you. Watch the games, not just the Utah-UCLA game, but every game on the multiple televisions spaced perfectly around the dining room floor. And when it's halftime, when there's a timeout, when a game that you're not as enthusiastic about is being played, head over into the pool hall and shoot some pool. Don't get hustled by James Peterson, though, because he'll take your money. James is behind the glass today, producing, as is most often the case.
Watch out for me in the pool room, all right?
Yeah.
Pool hall.
Got a fun show lined up for you. Trevor Riley is going to join us at noon. Adam Rittenberg, ESPN College Football Insider, is going to join us at 1. As we march closer and closer to game day, 3 days away from your ability to watch the game, listen to the game, or maybe travel down to the Rose Bowl to see Utah take on UCLA. We've got Edition with Devin Dampier conversation coming up tomorrow, our first Coordinator's Corner of the year, as well with Morgan Scally. Always look forward to those types of conversations. That's coming. And we'll air our grievances and then really get ourselves ready on a Friday and head off into the weekend full of football. College football actually returns tomorrow night. And then you've got a loaded up weekend of college football. Thursday games, Friday games, Saturday games, Sunday games, Monday and Monday night games. This is an extensive lineup of college football in the opening weekend. And, of course, it's also a holiday weekend, so hope everyone has a safe and sober adventure, whatever you're planning on doing.
Speaking of tons of college football, we don't have any Thursday or Friday games on the station, but we've got 4 games across the network, I should say, on Saturday and Sunday. So Texas and Ohio State is the headliner for the weekend. We've got that here on ESPN 700. We've got a couple of games over on the Fan 103.9, 98.3 ESPN the Fan, the sibling station, and baseball on Monday because Labor Day is kind of a baseball holiday too. So tons of college football and sports games on the station throughout the weekend.
Couple questions for you today. In the polling world, we did this last year when the show was brand new. And we were asking, this was a different scenario, of course. You were asking with the assumption at that time, how is Andy Ludwig going to call this offense? We came into the year thinking, hey, you know what? The pass-catching options at Utah might actually be the strength of the team. And you had Cam Rising as the quarterback. So this is a team that's going to be able to pass.
Remember all the tight ends Utah had last year?
There were like 6 tight ends that we were just like, these guys, all of them might score touchdowns. And ended up they had like well, we're not gonna dwell on any negative thing.
Man, just a whole different year than we expected, as we've said ad nauseum. The biggest one for me is there's 2. Like, what would Brant Keithy, what would his production have been if the quarterback situation was ideal, and what would Dorian Singer's production have been? Because Dorian still had over 700 yards, but anyway, we digress.
The actuality of how it played out, of course, didn't really fit our chosen narratives, but I asked the question early, and I'm asking it again now. The ideal split between pass production and run production, knowing that this offense has a QB run game designed into it, knowing that Jason Beck is now your coordinator, and that's going to look different than what Andy Ludwig wanted to do. For a Utah football offense that is now hopefully the upgraded, the improved New Mexico football offense. What do you want to see in terms of production? Now, there's the play calling question, and then there's the production question. The play calling question is something that, we got really, I think, off topic with it last year. People wanted there to be more pass plays called than run plays, and that's not ever going to be the reality of a Utah football offense. You probably don't want to see the pendulum swing too far in the favor of the run game this year, because what happens? We've seen what happens, right? When you're not a passing threat, opposing teams stack the box, and especially down in the red zone, you don't have the scoring production in your run game that you need. That is problematic for many different reasons. Utah's offense last year is not the standard by which we want to judge anything. That's why coaches have been replaced. That's why a new quarterback was brought in. You don't want it to look like last year's offense. And quite honestly, I don't see a world in which it could even begin to look like last year's offense from a play calling standpoint or from a production standpoint. The scheme is different. And more important than that, honestly, the personnel is different. You have a different quarterback. You have different running backs. You have a different running backs coach. You have different wide receivers. You have a different wide receivers coach. You have the same tight ends coach, the same offensive line coach. You have a couple tight ends back, but nobody who was overly productive. You have what seems like more hybrid role tools in that tight end room that fit this offensive scheme a little bit better. And then you've got an offensive line that all of us are just sitting back in our lazy chairs assuming is going to be fantastic, even though they, like everyone else, has to adjust to a new offensive scheme. There are ways that you can ease into a new offensive scheme when it comes to actual live action play. Then there are ways where you can just say, you know what? We accept that you're going to be drinking through the fire hose, and we will deal with the potential negative side effects of that. But let's run the damn playbook. And UCLA is a talented enough team that it dictates that you just got to run your playbook.
You can't get cute with a UCLA team. This isn't Cal Poly. This isn't even Wyoming. Like, this is UCLA. Like, it doesn't matter that they don't have high expectations. Do you think teams that would have played against a Utah team last year that was 5-7? I know they were competitive in all their games, so this is probably a different calculation. Like Colorado, for example, who won by multiple scores. Do you think late in the year they're like, this Utah team, they've lost 5 in a row, whatever. That we don't have to play our full playbook to beat their team. Like, come on, that's the situation UCLA's in.
Well, it's not only is UCLA in that situation, you are in a situation where, like, UCLA is good enough that if you make unnecessary mistakes by doing too much with your playbook, then they can make you pay for it. If you try to be too vanilla, they're too good of a team for you to beat that way. And look, they've got a guy at the quarterback position who is on paper as good or better than what you're hoping Devin Dampier ends up being. I mean, he's a good player. There's a lot of folks that were ready to jump all the way off the Nico bandwagon because we don't like what he represents. You don't like the idea that a guy who is already being paid a couple $1 million a year to play at Tennessee held out effectively as a college player and said, no, I'm not playing for that money. I'm not holding up my end of that agreement because that agreement no longer serves what I think. It no longer speaks to my talent. It no longer speaks to my production, whatever. So we don't like that he was one of the first to really kind of go out there and say, this isn't working for me. I'm going to do a professional contract holdout in college, is at least the way that the story was portrayed in a lot of these cases. He's still a good football player. He's still a guy who was at one point the second highest recruited quarterback in his class. He was a guy that everybody in the country would have liked to have. He's tall, big arm, strong, hard to bring down, elusive enough that he's a problem if you don't have, eye discipline into the backfield when you're in your dropbacks and all these
guy
things.
Who can do design runs. I mean, I would take Devin Dampier over him in design runs, but it's a guy who Tennessee was able to do that last year.
Exactly. So the matchup favors Utah in that it is a test that actually gives you a sense of what you are, but it's a less than favorable matchup in that it's far from being a tune-up game. So how are you going about your play calling here? What is the ideal split between run and pass, not only against UCLA, but this year in this offense? There's straight down the middle 50-50, which I went and I looked up the numbers, James. A lot of the best offenses in the land last year, when we're just talking about offensive production, total offense, a lot of the best offenses had a pretty heavy indexing in one direction or another. A lot of the best offenses, and I'm talking about teams that were in the top 25, were far from balanced when you actually break down their production. It was the teams that you would call run heavy that were actually the balanced offenses. College football, pro football as well, high school football now, is so pass happy when it comes to the actual production, not necessarily play calling in every case, but the actual production. Like Miami was the most prolific total yardage offense in the land last year. Miami had 2,000 more passing yards than they had run yards. In fact, 5 of the top 25 offenses in the land, only 5 of the top 25 offenses ran for more yards than they threw for. And when I tell you who they are, you're A, not going to be overly surprised, and you're B, probably not going to be overly impressed when it comes to their win-loss records in some of these cases. The teams that ran for more yards than they passed for last year that were top 25 offenses. New Mexico. That's the one that matters most to you because that's the offense, that's the play caller that you have at the University of Utah now. New Mexico ran for 3,043 yards. They passed for 2,768. That's pretty close to balance. From a production standpoint, they over-indexed on the rush yardage, all right? That was the number one offense that ran for more than they passed for. And the reason I say you might not be overly impressed by some of these is because the names I'm about to rattle off for you, it's kind of one of these things is not like the other in terms of who was actually successful. Boise State was the number 8 offense in the land last year, and they ran for more than they passed for. They also had the Heisman Trophy runner-up, and they were a playoff team, so it was almost an exact balance for them. 33-65 in the run game, 31-59 in the pass game. UCF, 29-77 on the ground, 23-96 in the pass game. UCF, not a successful team in terms of wins and losses. Now, Tennessee might be your favorite example here. Tennessee had a successful year, 29-36 in the run game, 28-75 in the pass game. That is as close to a 50-50 balance as you're going to find at the top level of college football. Tennessee was the 15th most prolific offense in the land. They played 13 games last year. UCF played 12.
Hey, who was their quarterback? Tennessee's quarterback?
Well, he's now playing for your first opponent this year at UCLA. Jacksonville State, the number 19 offense in the land, 35-17 on the ground, 26-66 in the pass game. So there's a bit of a theme here in that you don't necessarily get to look at the record books. You don't necessarily get to look at the performances from last year, and we could go back multiple years and say, all right, yeah, a team that runs for more yardage than they pass for had a great year. These are top 25 offenses. The wins and losses, they were good to Boise State. They were good to Tennessee. They weren't necessarily good to the other teams that ran more than they passed for. And spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, Utah football is going to run for more yardage than they pass for this year. Utah football is going to they're going to call more run plays than they call pass plays this year. That has been the case virtually every year with the University of Utah. And when you look at, well, the best years of Utah offensive production, balanced years, and Kyle Whittingham asked for balance. He says you can't be great at one thing and just okay at another and have success. Well, not the way that he wants to run things, at least. So how are you doing it? All right? I'm putting the Twitter poll out there. You can tell me what you think on there. What's the ideal split between run and pass production in the Utah offense this year? 50-50, 60 run, 40 pass, 55 run, 45 pass. I want to be realistic about it. I put out a very similar question last year, and people were asking for 60-40 to favor the pass, and it just was never realistic. Even when we were like Dorian Singer, Cam Rising, Brant Keithy, 6 other tight ends that we think are going to be pretty good, including the guy that I was gassing everyone up on, Carson Ryan, who's now at BYU. Like, it just didn't play out that way. Now you have a different offensive coordinator who's going to call things differently, and your talents in this offense, your established talents in this offense, have not established themselves in a Utah football uniform, with the exception of the offensive linemen. The guys who are actually going to touch the ball for you.
Besides Jaron Kump at center, of course.
Don't do that. The guys who are actually going to carry the ball for you are not guys that have established themselves in a Utah football uniform.
Wait,
I think it translates.
Disregarding the captain? I mean, come on now.
Stop it, James. Stop trying to derail the conversation with your technicalities that Jaron Kump, yes, does touch the ball every play.
No,
50-50, 60-40, 55-45. I'll put other in because somebody might want to get cute.
Yeah, 75-25. I don't know. I might be that somebody. By the way, if you look at the percentages of run versus pass that New Mexico had with Jason Beck and Devin Dampier, of course, last year, 52% run, 48% pass. So about as 50-50, about as close to 50-50 as you're going to get in college football. Certainly in a Kyle Whittingham offense. Kyle Whittingham coached team, not his offense, but the offense for a team that he coaches. Like, it's always been run heavy. So 52-48 is that might as well be 50-50. I suppose that's closer to 55-45 if you're rounding, but I would not go like last year. I was one of those saying probably 60-40 pass OC, and then you astutely pointed out that just doesn't happen with Utah, and it doesn't happen with the best teams in the nation typically. Certainly doesn't happen with Utah's best teams. So you converted me, especially after the way the season turned out last year. I'm like, yeah, you know what? It probably is better if you lean on the run a lot more than what we wanted to see out of the passing game last year with Cam Rising, a healthy Cam Rising, of course, which didn't turn out to be the case. So 52-48, 55-45 in favor of run, 50-50, like that's probably the ideal.
There's also the situation with Devin Dampier as your quarterback, where some of your called pass plays are going to turn into run plays.
Yeah, so you're going to
where you don't have to. I mean, no one ever wants to like scheme based on improvisational ability, but it is something that you have to factor in, where you're going to, in some cases, you're going to like roll out Devin and try to get not only a clear throwing window for him, but put him in space where he has an option. It's the RPO thing where guys are like, okay, you know what? We think it's a high percentage. It's 3rd and 5, and we're calling a pass play here. But, Devin, you absolutely have the ability to run the football here if you see a window, if you see a clearing to the sticks, whatever. So that's going to change if you just go back and we look at it only on paper and, do the Pro Football Focus. Hey, I'm evaluating this based on, was this a called run play? Was this a called pass play? There's going to be 5 of those per game, maybe more, where Devin says, well, this pass play is now a run play because I don't have an open receiver or I'm under duress or whatever.
Or there's 20 yards of open field there. I'm going to get the first down.
Yeah. I just we'll see how it plays out, but if you are the guy with the headset on and Kyle Whittingham says, all right, it's UCLA. How are we scheming against these guys? I knowing what you have on the defensive side of the ball, knowing who you have on the defensive side of the ball, I'm probably not 52-40-80, and I'm probably 60-40 until I know that this team can pass, until I know that Merriweather and Whittemore and Bentley and whoever else are serviceable targets at the very least. Let's line up behind these big hogs. And I know it's not sexy, and I know that it creates problems, and I know that there's a huge contingent in this Utah fan base who is probably their skin is crawling hearing me say this because it felt for so many years that you were trying to get away from that mentality, and you're trying to get away from that ethos and away from the idea that you were a quote-unquote one-dimensional offense. Well, I want balance, like all of you want balance, but from the play-calling perspective, I totally understand the urge to be like, let's go high percentage here, guys. Let's go with what we know or what we think we know is going to give us a level of success and ball control that makes it possible for us to win games and build this offense. I don't expect that you're going to have a breakout, insane passing performance in week 1. If you're talking about the full season, which I am, I probably go from like 60-40 in the first 3 weeks to 55-45 over the next 9. And I never think that I need a true 50-50 until my receiving core and the arm talent of the quarterback, who has to take better care of the ball this year, tells me, all right, now 50-50 is really attainable. If he thought he could do that at New Mexico, by the way, he probably thinks he can do it already at Utah. I'm talking about me, who would be a terrible offensive coordinator, making the decision.
Yeah, and for this first game and the first few weeks, certainly against like Cal Poly, like you probably don't have to throw. You probably could get away with not throwing double digits
I think
passes to beating a Cal Poly team. Like you could just line up and run the ball all game long.
But against Cal Poly is probably where I'm like, all right, today
experiment a little bit.
Today we're going to do 70-30 in the pass game because
just see what you have.
Even if you dig yourself a little bit of hole, Cal Poly, you can dig out of that hole. No disrespect to the Mustangs. Like, they're not built of the same stuff right now that Utah is, and it's not their fault. It's just the structure of college football, and it's fine. There's a reason that those games exist, and there's a reason that Cal Poly is going to ride home with the whatever $750,000 check for playing that game. By the way, did you see how much Nevada's getting? Nevada, a Division I team, not an FCS team. This is an FBS team. You see how much Nevada's getting to play Penn State in week 1? Nevada's getting $1.5 million.
Holy crap.
To go and get mollywopped by Penn State.
Good for the Wolfpack. Good for a group of 5 schools that are going to now be the beneficiary of these things because they don't need it as much as the FCS programs, but
still need it.
They still need it.
And I guess you probably can make an argument that they need it more in some ways.
I mean,
because they're the FCS programs are not expected to play the same game. FCS programs are not expected
division
to give NIL deals, and they're not expected to be able to outbid other teams and pay more for their rival, to pay more than their rivals, and they're not expected to have these beautiful weight rooms. They're just not. Like FCS programs, Weber State redid their like football performance thing. The north end zone now up there at Elizabeth D. Shaw Stewart Stadium is beautiful. It's nice. It's wonderful because of generosity that came from success of the program under Ron McBride and then Jay Hill. And good luck to you, Mickey Mental. But it's not a requirement.
No.
At an FCS school. I mean, there's really good FCS schools who have inferior facilities to like a Texas high school stadium.
Yeah.
And that's fine at that level. Nevada is like Utah State in like a really weird spot.
Boise State.
Where people are like, hey, dude, we want you to be able to compete with some of these teams. And they're just like, I don't have money for that. They're like, no, we want you to be able to do it. And by the way, to compete with Boise State on a regular basis, Boise State is an anomaly.
Yeah.
Boise State has nicer facilities than any Group of 5 school has business having. They've got a nice little donor base up there. They've got now going on 3 decades of pretty consistent success, and they're an outlier. And Nevada is like, I got to beat those guys? Colorado State had a big influx recently, and they've got some good things going on. UNLV, same thing happening. And Nevada's just like, guys, I'm going to have to take a damn beat-up game against Penn State to try and do this. Yeah. And instead of helping out, people are just like, yeah, go for it.
Utah State, I think, got close to 6 figures recently, or 7 figures recently when they went and played Alabama in Tuscaloosa, too. Like this, anyway, it's
which,
you're right.
By the way,
it's like it's such an oxymoron. It's like we want you guys to compete for the playoff with the rest of these national powers and these Power 4, or at the very least Power 4 schools, and yet you're not getting near as much money.
In any case, the play calling, the question is, where do you want the play calling and the production distribution to sit for the University of Utah in the opener against UCLA, and more importantly, beyond that, as you try to compete for a Big 12 championship where, for example, let's just take some good teams, or what we think are going to be good teams in the Big 12 conference, and we'll take their numbers last year, all right? Texas Tech was the number 9 offense in the country last year in total offense. 462 yards per game for Texas Tech. This year, they loaded up a bunch of transfer portal talent, and everyone expects them to be better than they were last year, although I think a lot of that is on the defensive side of the ball. Texas Tech passed for 38.57 and ran for 21.58 last year. Nowhere near balance as an offense. Baylor was the number 20 offense in the country, and people think Baylor's going to be really good this year. There's a lot of folks who think Baylor is a Big 12 championship-bound type of program. 33.97 in the pass game, 23.24 in the run game. Not balanced. Not the kind of balance that we're expecting the New Mexico numbers to translate to at the University of Utah. The top 2 most prolific offenses in the country last year were lopsided in favor of the pass game. You can make a case that that's what works. Ohio State, did they have a good year last year?
Yeah, they might have.
I can't remember.
National champs. Come on now.
They were the 28th most prolific offense in the country.
The defense was,
429 yards per game. They passed for 4,200 yards with, again, as is always the case now at Ohio State, just freakishly talented wide receivers, including the best wide receiver in the country and maybe the best overall football player in the country.
Yeah.
42.08, and they ran for 26.62. And by the way, their running back room was pretty damn good as well.
Yeah, Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson were. I mean, they leaned on those guys a fair amount. And listen, like Ohio State traditionally is, we're gonna run the ball. We're gonna really lean on our run game. It hasn't been since Ryan Day brought in all these first round receivers that they've started to go the other way.
By the way, you want to hear a really odd stat, little odd factoid here? There were 3 teams tied at 28 for the total offense, by the way, is measured by yards per game.
Yeah. Not scoring, just yards.
Yards per game is the total offensive number, and there were 3 teams tied for the 28th spot. It was Ohio State, Auburn, and Arizona State generated the same exact yards per game average at 429.4.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be surprised to hear that Ohio State was with that group of teams.
Well, I mean, look, it's not a bad place
to
be.
It's
Arizona
not. I mean,
State was a conference champion and a playoff team.
But there was so much talk about. There's always so much talk about the receivers. Ryan Day's an offensive mind. Will Howard was the top transfer portal quarterback, and he had a really good year last year. Like, that defense really drove the bus for that team, and it made it so that they didn't have to be. I mean, top 30 offense still great, but didn't have to be much higher than top 30 offense.
The line of demarcation for top 25 offense in 2024, by the way, at 431.5 yards. That's if you want to be a top 25 offense, 431. Utah football with 431 yards of offense would be a undefeated or one-loss team.
Yeah.
Because of what the defense is, right? And Ohio State shows you, like, did Miami have a good year last year? Yes. They were the number 1 offense in the country. Did Ole Miss have a good year last year? Yes. They were the number 2 offense in the country.
Both of them just outside the playoff.
But they were just outside the playoffs. So even as we talk about the expectations for the Utah offense, it's worth noting that you don't have to overdo it production-wise. New Mexico was 484 yards a game. They were really good on offense. They didn't have the defensive support to make that translate into anything super significant. They had a couple of really nice wins last year. Bronco did a great job. His staff did a great job. Devin Dampier did a great job and effectively outperformed what New Mexico is to get themselves to new places. Broncos at Utah State brought a bunch of his staff up there with him. Beck is at Utah. Devin's at Utah. And they showed we're good enough on this side of the ball that you probably want us elsewhere. We're outperforming the expectations of this particular football community, so we could probably climb the ladder a little bit.
By the way, you mentioned that 431 mark. Have you looked at what the 2 Pac-12 championship years were?
I haven't.
2022, 467 a game.
All right.
2021, 431. So, I mean, that 431 or higher is not just a mark from last season to be top 25, but in recent Utah football history, that's where, presumably you need to be to win a conference championship, to make the playoff, to go beyond that.
By the way, in the 2021 championship year, Utah had almost exactly a balanced offense. 3,041 rush yards, exactly 3,000 pass yards. Landing on exactly a round number, by the way, in a college football season when it comes to any stat, very strange.
Yeah. Probably why that year seemed like such an anomaly. Like, once Cam got into the starting role, it was like, yeah, when we win the coin toss, we're taking the ball first and we're going to score first. And Cam's going to dominate games in the air, at least comparatively to other Utah football quarterbacks. And it's like that was still just even. but it felt like so much more of the, leaning into the throw game.
It's wild. Tell me what you think, how you want to balance it out. Sean O'Connell Show just getting started here on a Wednesday. The 31 Days of Football brought to you by Baskin-Robbins. Include great football conversation Monday through Friday. We'll talk Utes. We'll talk Big 12. We'll talk the NFL. Big NFL personnel moves happening yesterday. Cut down day. We got some flowers to hand out for former Utes on that. Utes begin the season Saturday. UCLA Rose Bowl night game. You can hear it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. It's Utah's number one sports talk and the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Utah State Fair is coming September 4th through the 14th. Huge yellow slide. Best corn dogs in the world. Butter sculptures. Blue ribbons being handed out. Chickens, cows, pigs, horses. Rodeo, demolition derby. Comedians, rock bands. They've got it all. Rides that are totally safe but look just janky enough to give you a little bit of a thrill.
Or freak you out if you're not into roller coasters like I was growing up. I was always freaked out by the mini roller coasters that pretty janky at these fairs. By the way,
we have a family 4-pack of tickets to give out during Topical Trivia, by the way. ESPN700sports.com for details.
By the way, like large pizza-sized funnel cakes too at the state fair.
Oh, yeah.
Like that you need like a whole family of people, like 5 to 10 people to eat. Yeah. Good times at the fair.
I got $9. What can I get? There's like, you can get this. It's the size of a coffee table.
You can get diabetes and a heart attack at the same time.
Would you like me to add some chocolate sauce to the top of that thing? You're like, what? That's
absolutely.
An option? I'll slice up a banana so you can pretend it's kind of healthy. All right, let's go. Yeah, go get your fair foods. I remember the first time I went to the Utah State Fair, they had the most this is elementary school. This is, I think, 3rd grade field trip. They had the most enormous pumpkin, which, of course, when you're a kid, all those things look bigger.
Yeah.
But it was like a 1,000-pound pumpkin. What kind of lunatics are growing 1,000-pound pumpkins out there? Anyway, Utah State Fair is awesome, especially if you have kids. Take them. And we're going to give you a family 4-pack during the Topical Trivia right around 1:45 today. Trevor Riley is going to join us in about 15 minutes. The cut down day yesterday in the NFL, it's a bloodbath, man. 90 down to 53 in a day.
What a brutal day for everyone involved.
There's plenty of casualties with local connections. Let's focus on the positives here.
Yeah.
It was great to see the Denver Broncos patting themselves on the back. Not a Broncos fan, but there's a lot of local connections to the Broncos.
Yeah, for whatever reason, like all the former Utes end up there. So
the Denver Broncos said for the 21st time, this is on their official social media page, 21st time in the last 22 seasons, at least one rookie college free agent has made our initial active roster out of training camp. And there, front and center, the picture by himself is former Utah linebacker Corene Reed. Woohoo!
Let's go.
Hey, if you had put Corene Reed will make the active 53 and Gabe Reed coming out of Utah will not on the bingo card, I would have been like, that's backwards. That's wrong. Corene Reed, though, has played himself into this position over the last couple of years and had a great preseason. Had 8 tackles, an interception, a fumble recovery.
The interception was a pick 6 too, right?
Against the 49ers, which you don't like to see that. Nobody likes to see that.
A little internal struggle for you on that play.
19 Utes, 16 Cougs, 4 Aggies, 3 Wildcats, 2 Thunderbirds, and 11 more guys who played high school football in the state and then went to college elsewhere are on rosters. Clark Phillips, no surprise, made the Atlanta Falcons initial roster. Luther's son, Caden Ellis, former Judge Memorial linebacker, and then he went to Idaho, University of Idaho, obviously. Caden Ellis is also on that Atlanta team.
He was good for them last year, too. Yeah.
Tyler Algier, he's one of my favorite BYU Cougs of all time. Tyler Algier's an awesome player.
He's been awesome for the Falcons, too.
Kyle Van Noy made the Baltimore Ravens roster. The Ravens have actually been a team that's usually had some Utah connections. This year, it's Kyle Van Noy from BYU only. And Kyle has really developed into, it's funny to say developed into because he's a veteran. He has become one of the best pass rushers in the league. He was top 5 in the league in sacks last year.
Yeah, he developed is the right word, though, because even when he was rounding into form with those stints with the Patriots, that was not his forte, or at least wasn't something they asked him to do, and so he didn't show it off. Now it's like late in his career, he's like, yeah, I can rush the passer.
He's like, yeah, I'll give you 15 sacks in my Early 30s.
when I've never done that before in
What
my
the
NFL
hell?
career.
All right.
Like, just freak of nature, Kyle Van Noy.
The Buffalo Bills have Dalton Kincaid, Taron Johnson from Weber State, and Cole Bishop, of course. They also have Jackson Hawes, who played at Highland High School before going to Georgia Tech.
All right.
Carolina Panthers, Brady Christensen made the team. How about this one? Remember old Muhammad Diabate from Utah, linebacker? Active 53 for the Cleveland Browns.
Hey, let's go,
The
Mo.
Browns, they cut a bunch of Utes.
Yeah.
Or a couple of Utes. Jackson Barton got cut.
Tyler
Huntley got cut.
Although Huntley that did just feel like, hey, we need you in training camp and preseason.
Yeah, it was way too. They had like 9 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah, and they didn't sign him till August, so that one's not near as surprising.
Winston Reed from Weber State, and he was actually a Copper Hills kid, also made the Cleveland Browns 53 on the IR, designated for return IR, by the way.
Okay.
Jalen Johnson, we talked about this yesterday. Jalen Johnson, despite not having practiced or played in this preseason,
probably will miss the first couple weeks of the season.
They put him on the active Bears roster. They've also got Braxton Jones from Southern Utah. He was a Murray High School kid. And Noah Sewell, the former Oregon linebacker, who, of course, attended Orem High School.
Yeah.
Here in
Did you know he was also a quarterback at Desert Hills in St. George?
Noah played quarterback?
He was a quarterback his sophomore year.
Noah Sewell.
Yeah. He was a quarterback.
You're not talking Nephi Sewell.
No.
You're talking Noah Sewell.
Nephi did not play quarterback for Desert Hills. He played just about everything else. Noah was, as a sophomore, was their starting quarterback. And then, we were even hearing back then, hey, he's going to be an Alabama linebacker or Oregon linebacker. And, of course, family moved up to Orem so he could play linebacker.
The Cincinnati Bengals have Ryan Reckow, the former BYU punter. The Denver Broncos have, of course, Garrett Bowles, Jonah Ellis, and the aforementioned Karene Reed. So,
so Caleb Lohner, do we know what happened with him? The 7th-round draft pick for the Broncos?
Did not make the active 53. I believe he is going to be a practice squad player.
Not surprising. Guy with very little football experience, but good that he's at least making that practice squad.
Yeah, he got cut. Caleb Lohner, only Denver Broncos draft pick who failed to make the 53-man roster. So Karene Reed took his roster spot, basically. Yeah. Look, Caleb Lohner is a guy that needs to develop more. So him being put on a practice squad would make a lot of sense. Him being claimed off waivers by somebody else would make a lot of sense.
Need more development, more seasoning for sure. Next team?
Hold on, I'm just reading. Yeah. So it looks like the Broncos are – we'll have official news on this, I think, later today. Looks like the Broncos are going to put him on the practice squad. Seems like the most likely outcome for Caleb Lohner.
Makes a lot of sense for him.
Penei Sewell and Sione Vaki are on the Detroit Lions. Jordan Love, Zane Anderson. Remember Zane Anderson? I don't like to do this, okay? I don't like to do this. But our guy Ben Criddle over on our sibling station.
Yeah, Cougar Sports, 2 to 6.
From the time that Zane Anderson showed up at BYU, he was saying this kid is an NFL player. And Zane didn't even have a overly productive college career because he was plagued by injuries the whole time.
Yeah.
But he's hanging on in the NFL. He made the active roster for the Green Bay Packers as mostly a special teamer, right? He's listed as a safety. He's going to play some special teams. So they've got a little bit of love for the universities that wear blue in Green Bay. Zane Anderson, Chris Brooks, the former BYU running back, and Jordan Love. Houston Texans still have Dalton Schultz, the Bingham Miner, who ended up going to Stanford.
He's had a heck of a start to his career as a tight end.
Blake Freeland, Harriman High School and BYU, made the Colts roster. Lecky Fotu is going to be playing defensive tackle for the Las Vegas Raiders. And Jackson Powers Johnson, who went to Oregon but was a Corner Canyon kid, was a great center for the Ducks and is He's now on that Raiders roster.
Nice. Is he in his going into his third year now? Anyway, nice. First rookie year or first couple of years for him so far.
You may have heard of Puka Nacua. He's made the Rams active roster.
Is it Puka?
Very surprising.
Nakua?
Shocking that Puka Nacua was able to make the 53.
Rams games on the sibling station as well, 103.9, 98.3 ESPN The Fan.
Alohi Gilman, who played some high school ball at Orem, made the Chargers roster. And Andre James, who was a Harriman guy that went to UCLA, he made the Chargers roster as well. Tyler Batty was he's IR designated to return for the Vikings.
All right.
Jackson Dart, of course, made the Giants roster. Jay Tufele, who was a Bingham High School kid and then played at USC, was a really solid player at USC. He's on the Jets now. Jalen Warren, he's got the trifecta: Snow College, high school player at East, Snow College, and then Utah State, and then Oklahoma State. Jalen Warren has had a great start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Miles Killebrew, he's still hanging on, the former Southern Utah safety. My Niners, of course, have Jacob Robinson, who was Utah State, BYU, and Orem. He's an IR guy, and, of course, Fred Warner. How about this? Connor O'Toole made the Seahawks active roster. They cut Satoa Laumea.
Yeah.
Connor O'Toole, please, for the love of all things holy, let Connor O'Toole be healthy for any 12-game stretch so we can see what it looks like. That's all I need. If it doesn't work out for him in the NFL, I'm okay. If he's healthy through the season and they're just like, you know what? Thanks for 6 tackles on special teams, but this is a dime a dozen. We can find somebody else to do this. I'm okay with that outcome. Connor O'Toole,
just want to see it.
The poor kid has never been able to play a whole year.
Certainly not on the defensive side. He had that time as a tight end wide receiver the first year in the program, and the defensive side, all we heard was great potential. I want him to be healthy for him, and also like you to just see if he can live up to that potential. Injuries not be a factor.
And this is one of the downsides of when you ask somebody to add a bunch of weight to their frame that probably doesn't get talked about enough. Like, Connor O'Toole is a big guy by normal person standards, but he wasn't a big guy by defensive end standards. And it was like, hey, eat a bunch, put on a bunch of good weight. And he lifted his behind off to make that happen. And it just never translated to any kind of sustainability. But he has made the active roster, which, by the way, with a serious injury history in college, is also a challenge. So, that's a win for Connor O'Toole. And, again, these are the initial 53. He's one of those guys who's hanging. He's like 50 through 53 on the list. But good for him making that Seahawks roster. The Jacksonville Jaguars have Devin Lloyd, and they traded for Tim Patrick this morning, as you heard in James Peterson's update. Kansas City Chiefs have Jalen Royals from Utah State, Jeffrey Bassa, who was a Kearns High School kid, and then, of course, had a great Pac-12 career with Oregon, and Kingsley Suamataia, who is going to, I think, end up being a guard for them. They drafted him as a tackle, but it hasn't really translated the way that they wanted to. I think they'll probably shift him inside to play guard at some point. The New England Patriots, Kairos Tonga. Rashid Shaheed is the punt return, kick return, and wide receiving specialist from Weber State for New Orleans. Julian Blackmon is now a Saint. Devon Vele got traded from the Broncos to the Saints, and Taysom Hill starts the season on the PUP list, as we talked about yesterday, but he's still in a Saints uniform. Zach Wilson, BYU Corner Canyon. He's a Miami Dolphin now. Cody Barton is now a Tennessee Titan. Matt Gay, Washington Commanders, along with Bobby Wagner. So that's your full list of locals in the NFL on the initial 53-man rosters. We'll do our best to keep you apprised of the folks who make practice squads as well. But the local connections running strong for several of these teams. 19 from Utah, 16 from BYU, 4 from Utah State, 3 from Weber State, 2 from Southern Utah, and 11 who played high school football before they played college football somewhere else, I should say. All right, we're going to take a break here on the Sean O'Connell Show, and then we will get to a conversation to start hour number 2 with Trevor Riley, who's going to join us right here in studio. Season's right around the corner. I mean, he's probably itchy for football. But we'll talk about the NFL roster cut scenario with him. He's a guy who's been through that process, and, of course, what he expects from the Utah football defense as they get ready for UCLA in 3 days. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's number one sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 on the Sean O'Connell Show. Utah football legend Trevor Riley has stopped by in studio ahead of the start of the Utah football season, which you can listen to right here on ESPN 700 on the ESPN 700 app. You can find us at ESPN 700 Sports Utah, although you can't find the game on our YouTube page. But you can find us on the YouTube page. Trevor, what's up?
Do you remember those websites where you could just watch free TV and watch games all that? I don't know if you were involved in that. When I, in the early mid-2000s, 2010s.
That sounds like some shady stuff.
Well, we were in college, right, and you could watch any game, right? It was kind of a weird thing, but you had, your computer be full of viruses. But
yeah.
they
still have those.
Yeah, it's not good, okay? I remember that whole time, right? There was one thing that came out. It was gambling. You could gamble in place. So that was an online thing, and if you were offshore. And the reason I know all this, everybody, because you're in college, you hear about this stuff, right? College kids like crazy stuff. And I just remember being able to watch Russian Sambo at the same time as watching the NFL games on Sunday, during study hall. And then whatever, you could play some blackjack or whatever on some Bovada website or something.
For those who don't know, Russian Sambo is effectively MMA with shorts and a gi top on.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Made famous by Fedor and my man Putin, I think.
Yes.
They're both involved with that. But, I mean, the point being, it was an interesting thing, and I see the PFL shirt on, and I can't help but thinking that I remember watching UFC 1, 2, and 3 on VHS in the early 90s.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
The dark ages of the sport. Think of how far that's come from not only a technique, talent development standpoint, but the revenue standpoint. UFC just signed a 7-year, $7.7 billion television deal. That's just for the television distribution.
That's not pay-per-view. They're not pay-per-view anymore with that, correct?
Well, that was our thought. Everyone said, the pay-per-view model is going to die. And then Dana White came out the next day and said, well, we're not going to kill it all away.
Well, think about it, man. For the big ones, maybe they'll do that. But I think
it's because
it's
they have
mainstream
that one
now.
Yeah, it's because they have one coming next year on the White House lawn.
Yeah.
And they want to sell that. They don't want to put that on CBS.
How weird is that, man?
It's crazy.
I mean, it's not bad. It's just weird.
It's strange.
Like, I don't watch The Simpsons, but I would assume this would have been a Simpsons episode, okay, 20, 30 years ago.
They probably did predict it at some point. Season is coming. Saturday night, Rose Bowl, UCLA. A UCLA team with a lot of questions. A Utah team with a lot of questions that we feel pretty confident are going to be answered the right way because – they bring in this new offense, but we do it every year to ourselves. There's optimism every single year. Yeah, of course Devin Dampier is going to be great. Of course Wayshawn Parker is going to pick up where all the other great running backs in Utah football history have left off. How should we be thinking about these final 3 days before the season kicks off?
Well, the first game is always interesting. They say the second and first game in between is usually their largest improvement.
Sure.
With that all being known, they got a big-time quarterback over there. Okay, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Meaning he's a 5-star recruit, Nico. I'll butcher his last name.
Malahava.
There it is. All right. I don't know what the spread is, but I'm betting Utah's probably between +7 or -7 to 10, I would assume.
6.5-point favorites the last time I checked. Yeah.
So we're about a score favored, and that's probably going to move a little bit closer to them, I assume, before the game starts. All that because I like the head coach matchup for us. I think Kyle Whittingham is a superior coach. And with the talent being probably similar in a lot of ways, them being I call them a low-level Big Ten or mid-tier Big Ten school, right? And we're a high-end Big 12 school. We're about right there talent-wise if you look at the recruiting classes probably. I'm looking forward to the offense, though. I know what the defense is going to do. Morgan's going to be dialed in. Okay, this guy's he's going to get a dose of Morgan Scalley for the first game of the season with a new system, new coach. I like those odds. But I'm excited for Jason Beck. I'm excited for the quarterback. I'm excited to see, like you said, are we going to run the football? So I would say this. If we rush for over 150 yards, we'll probably win the game.
It feels like 150 is going to be a litmus test, like at the low end for probably every game because of how heavily this New Mexico offense at least leaned in the run world. We were going over this at the start of the show today. I asked the Twitter question. I put the poll out there in terms of offensive split and balance. You want 50-50 for real? You want 60-40 favoring the run over the pass, 55-45? I'm not even going to give people the option of more passing yards than rush yards because I just don't think it's happening this year for the University of Utah. But, you played defense at the highest level in the game, and you've been around this Utah football team as a player and as a coach. What is the right balance for this offense, especially with the spread concepts and a running quarterback?
Well, if Morgan's going to get them off of the field on third downs consistently, and they're going to continue to have, punts, I call it, that's the best thing you want to hear is 3 and out, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to run the ball, man. You can count on that. That game's going to get shortened up, and if they're not scoring too much, there'd be no reason to pass and give them more options to score. With all that, if we start having some issues right in the back end or whatever, and they're making some great plays, I could see him ratcheting up a little bit. I think Coach Witt, that's what makes him a great coach, is he can feel that temperature, right? Do we need to open this up a little bit? And even Jason, he'll know, hey, we're down a score here, but I see us being ahead most of the year this year, Sean. I do see us in the second half. We're gonna be probably going into halftime most of these games ahead. That's gonna change. Look at Kyle's record when we're winning at halftime, right? That's a good litmus test for this season. If we can take the lead at half, right, with this offensive line, what I'm seeing, big dog. We're going to be leaning on them suckers the whole rest of the season.
Yeah, I feel. I mean, I know that there's a narrative in the Utah fan base that you kind of got to get away from that old school simple football, because when you look at the elite teams in the land, they do have wide receiver talent that's on to the NFL, and they have impressive passing numbers. But we also went through this exercise earlier. Like, Ohio State won a national championship last year with a very balanced offense. They ran the ball a lot, and they played great defense. Now, they had some trump cards in the wide receiving core especially, and a good quarterback whose arm could be a threat anytime, which helps balance out your offense. But I guess I'm not – I never really have – but especially this year, I'm not really hoping to force the issue of like, no. Let's spread this thing out. Let's get crazy. Let's throw the ball all over the yard. We just want to win some damn football games.
There you go.
And if that is a 17-10 victory 3 weeks out of 12, fine.
I would say you're spot on. Michigan won it the year before, running the ball a lot.
Yep.
Okay. They had a decent quarterback, but they were running play action. Okay, they're running the ball. You see single high for all you X's and O's guys. And guess what he's going to do now? They're going to play action the ball. So the key is that you want to not let teams in this day and age. Everybody likes to run split safeties on first and second down, whether it's quarters or cover two. If you can run that right, you mitigate that risk of getting beat deep. So you see a lot of teams running that, or straight man, single high. But I'm saying when you look at our conference and who we're going to see, they're going to play a lot of quarters defense. So if you can run the ball, do it. And that's where the chess game comes in there, right? Can our too high defense stop your running game? And I don't think so. I really believe in this offensive line. And if we take the last 2 years in the NFL, right, they're running the ball, gosh dang it, in Philadelphia. That's the way the thing now is that we're tougher than you. We'll mash you in the face. What are you going to do about it? That's where the game, kind of like early 90s. I was watching the Cowboys documentary the last couple nights, right?
Yeah.
This is what they were doing, guys. They were mashing people, right? They lost their offensive lineman, Eric Williams, to a car injury. They said the whole season was lost. They didn't end up winning it. That's the year the Niners won at 94. So you get the point is that we're kind of having a renaissance here, and we're just running the ball a little different. We're going to spread them out, and we're still going to run the ball, though.
Trevor Riley's our guest here in studio, leaning back on some things we were talking about earlier in the week. Who was the best individual player that you played with in your time at the University of Utah?
Okay, that's a great question. All right, when I'll just go year by year, and then in 2009 I got there. David Reed was the best player on the team.
He was awesome.
David Reed was a man-child. Okay, at wide receiver. 2010, I would say, that was a tough year. We weren't very, very good. We won 10 games. Roster-wise, we didn't have an all-star on the team. I liked our defensive line as a unit. I don't really remember somebody being that great. Robert Johnson was great too, by the way, 2009.
Rojo, yeah.
2011, right? John White, okay, running back. He carried the team basically. I'd say 2012, that was Star Lotalele. Okay. He was unbelievable, right? Sports Illustrated had him as maybe the number 1 overall pick going into that season in 2012. And then 2013, I would say me. Right? I was the best player on the defense. On offense, Drez Anderson. Mm-hmm. And so all that together, I think Star was best player. Okay, Star was dominant. When you look at that, the Star was just dominant, dude. And I was playing behind him, and he was eating people.
Okay,
he was just eating them up.
I asked you that question for a little confirmation bias because we went through this exercise, and preseason anythings are just that. They're just preseason, right? But Spencer Fano is being talked about right now as the best offensive lineman in the country in some publications. He's being talked about as a top 10 overall player in some publications. Even if they don't think he's a top 10 player, everyone thinks he's a top 25 player in the country. And we were going back through the conversation, what was it? I don't know, Monday? Has Utah ever had a top 10 overall player in the country at any position? Star, you can make a case for. Alex Smith, I say yes, was a top 10 player in college football. He was fourth in the Heisman voting. He was an unbelievable player, and his NFL success, I think, speaks to that. You go back to, maybe Luther, but we don't have as good of a context on that. And the only names we could really come up with, well, it's a very short list, I guess. And Star is one of those guys, but you were on that roster.
Yeah.
You're on that team. And there were some games where Star was tossing dudes.
Oh, he was eating people, dude.
Where he was just like, it's like when he woke up and decided he wanted to be the baddest dude on the field, he was able to do that.
So I remember seeing Star. He was showing up to our spring practices in 2010. He looked like, I call him the Polynesian Mankind wrestler. Okay, he looked like Mankind. He had hair down to his shoulders, right? A big beard. He never smiled, all right? He wore a hat, wore big clothes, and I was like, yeah, I want to be friends with that guy quickly. So there was a lot of buzz around this guy because he was a freak athlete, and he was supposed to go to BYU.
Yeah.
That's no college. And so when he shows up, he wasn't very good. Bad technique. Okay, obviously the tools, he played too high. He wanted to see everything. I think he was a linebacker maybe even in high school.
Okay.
And so he wanted to see everything. So John Pease and Coach Chad Kauha, they really got into him, right? And then all of a sudden, he turns into this just like, where did that come from? It was game, a couple 3 or 4 in 2000, 10 or 11, and he's just like, this is the best player on the team. And it was a weird thing because I'm telling you guys, when he showed up in 2010, he wasn't very good. We played him anyway. Right?
Yeah.
The tape, he was not grading out well. You watch the tape, right? He was just he wanted to see everything, and then all of a sudden it was like, all right, now I'm going to start playing. And to your point, it was like watching. You ever seen the X-Men and Pop Warner here that have the X on their helmet?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you're going to find one every once in a while who's been shaving at age 12, all right? And it's like, really? No, they need to do it by puberty, not by age. And that's what Star looked like at USC, right? I mean, the first quarter, he just throwing guys out of the way and we're up 14-0, dude.
That was my favorite. That was one of my favorite all-time Ute performances because it was Khalil. It was Matt Khalil.
Yes, he was he was supposed to be the guy, man.
He's an All-American center.
He ate him up.
And Star, there was, I think, one series in the first quarter where Star was just like, I'm going to show everyone in the world that I'm better than you.
Dude, he's Mankind, bro.
And he forced a fumble. He tossed a 320-pound man back into his own quarterback. And you're just like, okay, that guy, when he's on his game, put him on any SEC team, put him on any Big Ten team, put him on any NFL team, which, of course, you went on to some success in the NFL as well, and he can hang. He can do that. Utah's had a bunch of great teams, has a bunch of great players, yourself included. I don't know that we've ever had a guy that in the preseason, and again, it only matters so much, but where there's kind of an agreement for people in the know, opposing coaches, sports writers, whatever. They're like, oh, that guy is something truly special. Players have emerged as that over the course of a season in Utah, and it's been a fun surprise and a fun conversation point. But you usually get, if you're even a good Utah team, gets left out of the conversation when it's like, who are the best individual players in the country? Those are Michigan guys, Ohio State guys, Alabama guys. And now you got actually 2 offensive line being talked about that way, but especially Spencer.
It's a weird thing because on the other side, there's a guy who might be even better.
Who?
Barton. Just remember I said that right here, right now. Barton might be better. I'm telling you, his brother did this. Cody. He wasn't that good. And then all of a sudden, his senior year, he was really, really good. I mean, really, really, really good.
So James will tell you, I spent hours last summer, this time last year, gassing everybody up about what Lander Barton was going to be for Utah football. Because everyone that I've talked to is like, he is the best version of his brothers.
He is, dude.
And he's built like you. He's a giant, rangy, lengthy linebacker.
He's a unicorn, bro. He can really run, man. He can run, dude. He can run and jump.
And so I was just like, this guy could be an All-American player, and maybe should be an All-American player. And then, it took until the last 4 or 5 games before he started playing like that. And talking to him since, players never want to admit this because it feels like an excuse in real time. But he was saying, like coming off the surgery, I wasn't fully comfortable yet. I wasn't all the way back to myself yet. And now he says he is, and he's playing like he is. And so
I think that his instincts are going to take over now. Okay. I think we saw it at the end of last season. At the end of last season, he started playing really well. Mm-hmm. Go back to the Colorado game. He had a pick to start the game out with. And he just kind of, the reps, right? When you're a linebacker, it's like quarterback. You're in the second level. Okay. You got to see everything. And you got to play against the run first, and you got to RPO. And right now there's a lot more responsibility on linebackers than there's really ever been. They kind of helped us out. I say us because I played it. You can't go downfield anymore as an offensive lineman. They're really going to call those penalties.
Yep.
But other than that one rule, it's very much leaning for quarterbacks to eat you alive if you will play linebacker. All these RPOs are invented to beat linebackers. And so as you see this guy progress from a kid who's just a great athlete, is he an edge player? Is he a tight end? He's gotten the snaps now, and he's a leadership role where I've seen this before with the Barton boys, right? They peaked their senior years, both of them. And that's a wonderful thing when you're recruiting, right? You just keep stacking the years. And so I think this is going to be a year where he's an all. Remember Gianni Paul's year? Remember that year when he just was statistically
should have been the Pac-12 defensive player.
Come on, man! They ripped it off from him. Okay, I had
gave it to Defoe because he was scarier looking off the bus.
Starr had a year like that, right? Okay, he was a Morse Trophy winner. I had a good year like that. We weren't very good, but Gianni Paul had a real year like that. I mean, you go look at the stats, guys. I think it was 2015, maybe 20. Anyways, I could see that happen. Barton's a guy who stuffs the stat sheet, dude. Sacks, TFLs, forced fumbles.
You get me overexcited. I spent too much time talking about this last offseason and ended up being kind of wrong.
Well, the offensive lineman never touched the ball. That's why I used to tell my brother about Capella and these bigs that they're paying big money doing basketball. How are you going to pay a guy that can't score in the fourth quarter? And it's the same thing with an offensive lineman, right? Or even a D tackle. If you don't touch the ball, right? This my big fella Vince Wilfork. He was a great player. He had a couple tackles a season. I say that in all seriousness, a couple of tackles a season. Yeah. And so when you scale it backwards a little bit, that position he's at, we call it a havoc player. He's got to make havoc plays for that defense to work. And they're giving him the keys. And so Swan's one of the great coaches in the whole country, dude. He's undercover. Coach Mack trained him at Weber, dude. I'm telling you.
Love Colton
Jay
Swan.
Hill, right? And then he's now with Coach Witt, and he's with Scally. This is we call him a sensei of linebacking. And so I believe in this kid fully, and I think that Fano's good. He better play well. He's paid like it, and I think he will. The brother's really good. I think this kid is like a first-round pick, maybe. That's the kind of talent he's got.
Lander. So the ceiling for Lander we've talked about on the show is what we saw from Devin Lloyd, who was a first-round draft pick.
That's it, dude. Devin was a receiver from Eastlake High School in California. I'm not very aware of Devin. I got there in 18. He hadn't even played. He didn't even start in 18, dude. That's how good that team was, by the way.
Yeah.
19, he was a dog. And then 20, obviously, or 28. But that guy is the prototypical backer, Sean. You and I growing up, you remember Greg Lloyd?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's
Pittsburgh Steelers, Greg Lloyd.
You remember the size, right? And so Lander, guys, he fits the mold. We were talking about Ray Lewis on the break. Some of these guys now are getting bigger at backer. 220 is not really – Lander Barton looks like a defensive lineman playing, to your point, playing linebacker.
Well, it's like and there's different schools of thought. I'm a big fan of, like, the Patrick Willis linebacker, right? Yes. Patrick Willis is 6 feet tall and weighed 225 pounds probably. I always listed him heavier than that. But he can run. He's an incredible player.
He was a running back playing linebacker.
He's like, a Levante David type build, those guys. And then there's the Brian Urlachers of the world.
That's Barton.
You're a 6'5", long-armed freak of nature that can cover sideline to sideline and has no difficulties with the matchups that you're talking about. Offenses are trying to exploit what you can't do as a linebacker.
Yep.
And if there's nothing you can't do, there's nothing for them to exploit.
And he was trained by another great Mormon coach up at Utah State, Mr. Brian Urlacher, or Mr. Bronco Mendenhall. Mm-hmm. And so we know how to do linebackers, okay? In the Beehive State, we put them out. We always have. And this is the athlete. This is Devin Lloyd, okay? This is that type of athleticism. And so the instincts and the reps, right? Devin was a receiver in high school and a safety. He needed the reps, okay? We talked about quarterbacks. Sometimes you just need the reps. Tom Brady Saturday, you're right. I'm talking about my man Shador. He's going to be all right, everybody. All right, I'm rooting for this kid. And we go back to linebacker with Barton again. He's leading that defense, and I see him having here's the stat lines I'm going to tell you, right? All things considered, through a 12-game season before the playoff or what anything, I see 100-plus tackles. Okay. I see 20-plus TFLs, and I see 5-plus sacks, 3-plus interceptions. That's the slash line I'm looking at for this kid.
All right. Cut that, James.
That's 8 tackles a game, right? That's about 2 TFLs a game. Okay, sack every other game and a pick every 3 or 4 games. That guy's going to be involved in a turnover on almost. I see 3 to 5 forced fumbles. That's the kind of stuff we're going to stuff the sheet with that kid, man.
We've had those guys like Johnny Paul was a great example that you used. Those individuals, when you're that home run hitter, stat stuffer, you need the cleanup tackler.
Yes,
you need the guy who gets on base for you to bat him in, right? And a lot of those great ones that we're talking about at Utah have had that. Johnny Paul and Jared Norris were a phenomenal combination.
Bash Brothers, dude.
Chase Hansen and Cody Barton were a phenomenal combination. Lavani DeMooney is probably the most underrated player in the Big 12 Conference in my mind because, he played for Stanford, played great ball for Stanford in bad Stanford years before he came here, led the team in tackles, and then missed the season because of injury. Him being back and playing alongside Lander when, there's no more Karene Reed to be that tackling machine, I think lends itself to what you're talking about because it allows Lander to be more free knowing that he's got a guy that cleans up all the mistakes that everyone else makes.
Dude, and Lander's got Aliki Viamahi in front of him. That guy, we recruited him in 2018, right? What's he got, 5 kids? All right, he's an old man. Okay, we got an old man at D tackle, and we got a hell of a D line, right? We got 2 or 3 D line coaches there that are some of the best in the country. I just think the whole thing sets up for Lander to really make we need turnovers from Lander, okay? We need turnovers, everybody, on defense. We got to get turnovers from these big-time players that we're paying big money to. We got to think of it now as a cap thing, right, Sean? And you can kind of read in between the lines, right? If we know kind of roughly what the salary is going to be based off of the TV deal, if that's public information, you can kind of scale it backwards. They got to share $25 million, whatever it is, with the sports program. So whatever that cut is for the football team, it's probably going to be $12 to $15 million somewhere in there.
Yeah, it sounds like they're going to maybe getting as much as 80% of that at most schools, but with Utah, you gotta throw a little bit of love to gymnastics at least,
and women's volleyball. I mean, we're the most valuable sports program in the Big 12, guys. We're number 1. It's not even close, I don't think. So getting to the point, we got to get output out of these guys. Now it's a finance game. We have to start looking at that as we critique the game, right? We are now. I'm looking at Lander Barton. I know what he's making, and if he doesn't produce, I'm going to get angry as an alumnus, right? And I'm not saying I'm going to attack the kid, but I'm going to get frustrated and say, why is this guy not? We're paying him this. I know what our cap is. We need production.
Okay, so this is interesting because in the NFL, everybody knows what you're making.
Yes.
That's not yet the case in college football.
It's quasi like tennis, where maybe they pay in gold bars or something. No one really knows.
I don't know that I'm ready for that dynamic. We've all rolled with the changes because you have to. I don't know that I'm ready for that exact dynamic in college sports because my mind is still like these are kids. My mind is still these are 18, 19
gambling,
guys.
Dude. Gambling. Look, it's already cat's out of the bag.
You're absolutely right. If it ever gets to the point, and I'm sure it's inevitable because agents, it serves their needs to say, we got Devin Dampier $2 million to go to Utah or whatever. So we're going to find out,
dude,
what these salaries are.
Read between the lines. We know what the cap is. We know how many players there are. We know how many starters there are. You can start who the best players are. Yeah. You can start just how it goes, dude.
You could make your guesses, but in the NFL, you could just look it up.
And that's coming to remember, the feds are probably going to get involved in this thing. There's too much money that's being thrown around, and they're going to take a piece of it, as we're seeing now. We're terrifying. They've already said they're going to do it, so they're kind of waiting to see if they can get their act together. But it's going to happen. These are public universities. This is run like AAU basketball is now in charge of college football. You guys saw the documentary.
Gross.
That's what's going on. I just got off the phone. Listen, I got off the phone with a guy, great guy, right? He's in the space I'm in where he can deal players, all right? So we're talking about human trafficking on a very, very non-bad level. We're trying to provide places for children, but we're moving kids around the country now, and there's money involved, right? What is that called, Sean? You're housing them here, then they leave in 4 months, and they go here, and how much is it to get them there? Are you going to provide this? Do we have this and that? Guys, this is human trafficking.
Stop
okay?
saying it's a
No, but it's willful. It's the act of doing that. We're not trafficking. We're transporting. We're human transporting. We're transporting young men to their dreams.
You're trading commodities.
Yes, whatever you want to say, what it is, right? That's a scary business to be in. There's all kinds of bad actors in that, right? You have to be pure when you're in that business. And so when money gets thrown around, I look at it as a responsibility. If you're making money, I need output, right? That's just how it goes in this world. And so it's a bottom line business now that you're doing pro sports. We chose this, Sean. We've been talking about it for years now.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're here. So the genie is out of the bottle.
Can't put it back in.
What are you going to do, dude? The money's on the table, man.
Yeah.
And you're moving kids around. Gosh dang it. I was talking about today, moving a kid from the South out here to come play football and then sending him back in January. It's just like, and so the feds are going to get involved. I'm almost positive they will. And maybe they won't soon, but there's too much money being thrown around, man. It's just they've already done this before. They said they're going to do it. I'm betting it will happen.
What kind of output does this Utah team need to beat UCLA? How many points do you got to score to get over on the road, first game of the season, start this thing off the right way, week 1?
The quarterback for them is the key.
Yeah.
We saw last year Utah, and I'm going to say this again, they beat the hell out of Colorado's offensive game plan. Go watch the tape, dude. They lost the scramble drills. Okay, Travis Hunter and a couple of his receivers out-athlete and Shador out-athlete the deal. They couldn't get him down. And we saw that a few times last year where, that can happen, where you beat a team and then they beat you. Does that make sense?
Where you're schematically better, but they have guys that make up for that.
They're beating you for whatever reason, and then they say, well, you're not beating us. Yeah, you have to plan for that. Well, it's like you only have so many hours in the day, dude. These kids are still on the clock, right? They're not pros in that regard. That's why it's kind of a weird model. In the NFL, you show up at 7, you leave at 7. College, you show up at 1.
Yeah.
And you leave at 6 or 7. So you only have so much you can do. So I would say this, that quarterback, we got to keep him under 4 scores, dude. I don't know what he's about out here, right? He's going from SEC ball down to the Big 12, right? He's the biggest thing right now that I'm worried about going into this game. I haven't watched a lot of tape on him. I know he's highly heralded, I guess. They had a winning record last year at Tennessee. That's not an easy place to play. He's a sophomore. He's seen a lot of reps. I just, I'm sure they got some speed at receiver there, okay? So what I'll say is that we got to be able to run the football, right? Keep that quarterback off the field. That would be my idea going into this game. I don't want that ball in his hands, dude. He's probably the best athlete on the field, right? Let's try to keep him off. It's tough, but that I'm looking to see if we can hold him under 250 yards passing. And I don't think he's a real big time runner, but that'd be a big thing for us.
So this is like a 30-28 type of game.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
I very well could see it because the first game, right? And we got this kid's a slinger, a tall guy who can sling it. He moves around. He's played against, I know, on paper, better athletes than what we're going to have probably, right? He's played in the SEC. I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, you know a little bit more about this kid. I'm just worried about that QB. I saw what happened last year. Utah was the better team, and they got beat by a couple scores by Colorado.
And look, he's a really good player, and you have to pay attention to that. Like Trevor's saying, Nico beat last year. He beat Oklahoma. Rougher year for Oklahoma, right? He beat Oklahoma. He beat Florida. He beat Alabama. This is a guy who knows how to play.
And now he's coming down to what they would call AAA ball, right? We're not quite in those two conferences. I'm not saying Utah is that everywhere. I'm just saying that's where we're considered that.
They lost
money-wise.
As people remember, they lost in the playoff to the eventual national champion. So he's
pretty good, dude.
He's a really good player, and people jumped off the bandwagon. We talked about this when we started the show because of what he represents. He represents this new professionalization. He came out of high school on whatever it was, like a $14 million deal or it was an $8 million deal. Came out of high school on an $8 million deal. And I remember reading that and just being like, that is ridiculous. You're giving a 17-year-old kid an $8 million deal to play quarterback at Tennessee.
From L.A., by the way. He ain't from the South. He's from L.A.
And then he said, you know what? No, I don't want to play on that anymore. And
he actually asked for double.
He
renegotiated. Said, I want $4 million a year, not $2 million.
That's which people don't like, right? We don't like the direction it's headed, and because of that, you want to undermine the player that he is because you don't like what he represents.
We call them haters, by the way.
Yeah, well. Okay. And I find myself being that way sometimes when I'm talking about college athletes. I'm like, because I was a walk-on nobody, and I'm just like, do you realize the opportunity that you have just to be? But he's putting 75,000 people in the stands, so of course he feels justified in saying, I just took you to the playoff. Tennessee was not in this position when I showed up here, and thank you for the money you've already paid me, but I see my jersey in the stands. I see that orange everywhere, and now we made it to the playoff, and you just cashed in on $75 million.
Double down on me. Come on.
And instead, he ends up at UCLA. I say all that to say, like, just because you don't like his business decisions doesn't mean that he's not a great football player.
Absolutely. The key with this is he's only 19, maybe 20.
He's 20, yeah.
They scale so fast at that age, everybody. They scale, like we're talking about Barton. He is probably going to be better than he was last year. That's why this will be Morgan Scalley. I want to see. I believe that they're going to have something for this kid.
I just found something out. Me and Nico share the same birthday.
Wow, what is that?
September 2nd, next Tuesday.
Well, that's awesome.
Look at that. Me and Nico have the same birthday. I'm gonna have to send him a cake after Utah beats him.
I think the whole thing about Utah going down to L.A., playing this kid. People are going to watch this game, man. I think this is going to be a very much
it caps off
highly
the
televised game.
The whole opening of the whole opening Saturday, yeah.
Our ex-players were having a tailgate, dude. Section 305. Come on through, everybody.
You going down?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're playing Laverne College on Friday.
Yeah, tell me about your scrimmage, your game against
we played
Laverne
snow.
College.
We played snow to start last Saturday. We had about 3,000 people there. Okay?
That's cool.
Defense played well in the first half.
Utah Islanders versus Snow College Badgers. I like that.
We did well. Okay, we in the first half we did well, but they were awesome. They got a receiver who was on Texas last year. They got some players, man. So we did that, and so we're playing Laverne this week, and that'll be fun. Okay, I think they're D3. Interesting way that it's going. Right, we're junior college. They're D3. No big deal. And so we're playing them Friday, and then me. Check out this. Who's on our staff? Linebackers Darrell Mack. Okay, remember him, the running back?
Of course.
Okay, Seni Valnuku, D-line coach, the Tongan Cowboy.
Yeah.
Brian Blecken, defensive coordinator.
Okay.
Okay, I'm the GM, and that's just to get things started on the defense.
That's a little who's who.
Come on now, baby. All right?
Like that.
So we'll all be in California. I think we're gonna come hang out down there. We'll be at the tailgate and maybe do some pre and post game radio.
I like that. Go check it out. If you're on your way down to Pasadena for a little Rose Bowl action, Labor Day weekend.
That's right. Utah Players Association, man. We're having a tailgate, Section 305, man. Come on through.
We have destroyed the clock, and I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for coming in and talking ball.
Anytime for a fellow Irishman, dude.
We're going to do this every week. Every time we get an opportunity to have Trevor Riley in the studio throughout this football season, we're going to take it.
I love it.
Thanks, dude.
By the way, final prediction, Utah 27.
Okay.
UCLA 21.
27-21 says Trevor Riley. Will make him eligible for the prize pack that we're going to give away. We'll give him some Utah State Fair tickets if that was accurate or something. All right. James, I'll let you figure out if we're double breaking or not. We probably need to. On the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Big O Tires special deals going on right now. They've got $80 to $120 instant savings on Nitto tires, Nexen tires, Coopers, Sumitomo tires. They've got it all. Mail-in rebates going on. They've got multi-point vehicle inspections for free. Check out Big O Tires. Tell them OC sent you. Get your car ready for these. Maybe you're making the drive down to the Rose Bowl. Before you do that, head to your nearest Big O Tires. Get the free multi-point inspection. They're going to make sure your fluids are filled up, that you're all taken care of, and that you can drive all the way down to Pasadena with no issues. Name brand tires. Big-time savings happening right now at Big O Tires. Multiple locations up and down the Wasatch Front. Give them a call or check out bigotires.com and tell them that OC sent you. All right, we just had Trevor Riley in studio, and he look, I asked him the Spencer Fano question, and there's this kind of assumption, right, that Spencer Fano and or Caleb Lomu, they're going to be the best overall players on the team this year. Give me a different name. 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Give me another name. He said Lander Barton's probably going to has a chance to be better than those guys. Has a chance to be the best overall player on the team.
Are we also saying going to qualify someone other than Devin Dampier too? Because it feels like quarterback is always the next guy, or is that
when I'm talking about best? When I'm talking about best player on the team, I'm not talking about the guy you pay most attention to. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when the postseason awards come out. This is all predictive stuff. Okay.
Like most decorated player.
Who's the guy that everyone is just like, that's the highest draft pick? That's the All-American. That's the first-team All-Conference. Yeah. That's the DPOY. That's the Offensive Player of the Year. Now, look, Devin Dampier and every quarterback in the conference, every quarterback in the country, you're put in the position where you can be the most impressive player. You have the highest percentage of opportunities to show people what you are playing quarterback more than any other position. You know where it's really hard, and Trevor mentioned this, playing D tackle, playing D line, playing O line, nobody's eyes are on you. Like we are going to watch Utah football games, and 85-90% of the offensive snaps they take, I won't even look at Spencer Fano. I won't look at Caleb Lomu, right? The only time that I will actually pay attention to what they're doing is when we check out the replay, when we go back after being at Rice-Eccles Stadium and we watch the game on television because we're junkies like that and we want to see it a second time. Or if you're watching an away game on television and you see, oh, look at this, and the color analyst is like, watch number 71 right here, watch number 55 right here, watch them blow up the dude in front of them, watch him take this guy for a ride all the way into the water cooler, watch him plant this dude in the end zone. That's the only time you're even going to look at those guys. Aliki Vimahi is probably going to have somewhere between 15 and 30 solo tackles this year. Doesn't mean he's not a great player. In fact, if he has 30, he probably had a really great year. Because interior defensive linemen, it's really, really hard for them to jump off the page. Corners. Go look at like the best years for guys who play corner at the University of Utah. Go look at Travis Hunter. It's like, hey, do you know that player affected 20 passes thrown by the opposition last year that are actually in the stat sheet? Because that's a real number. If you have like 12 pass breakups and you have 6 interceptions, that's an insanely good year as a corner.
Which seems a little pedestrian compared to your expectations,
well, yeah,
even though that's an awesome year.
If you're a running back who has a significant effect on 18 plays in a season, you're a third-string running back. If you're a linebacker who has a significant effect on 18 plays in a season, you're a third-string linebacker. If you're a starting corner who can actually notch a stat on 18 passes, and I'm not talking about a tackle because, of course, you're going to get tackles too.
PBU.
I'm talking about pass defended, interception, which is the job, right? That's a phenomenal year. And the better you are at corner, the fewer tackles you're going to have because opposing teams don't get to throw at you, right? Your most stat-stuffing corner is probably your worst corner when it comes to tackles. He's the guy that opposing quarterbacks are just like, that dude just came in, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. And that guy has to make the tackle after a 9-yard gain, an 11-yard gain, a 6-yard gain. That guy is getting chewed up, right? It's Jalen Johnson, Clark Phillips. These guys have low numbers. So I'm talking about when it's all said and done for Utah football, when we are looking back at the all-conference list, and we're saying, well, geez, you got Lander Barton's a first-team all-conference defender. Cool. Logan Fano ended up with double-digit sacks this year. He's in the all-conference conversation. Of course, Spencer Fano and probably Caleb Lomu are going to be there. What if Tainoa Tongiai ends up with 30 pancake blocks this year? We're not going to notice it necessarily in the moment because that pancake block is all about a Wayshawn Parker big gain or touchdown, and we're going to be talking about Wayshawn, and then we're going to secondarily come back to, well, how did that happen? Yeah. Oh, my gosh, it was Moka Fisi, it was Tongiai, it was Kump, it was the offensive line.
It's a replay thing or a post after the season highlight package on social media.
So I'm fine with your tendency to say, well, the best player is going to be Devin Dampier. Well, look, Devin Dampier Devin Dampier is the most important player on Utah's football team, right? The quarterback is. He might have a phenomenal year, might have great stats. He might be the 4th best quarterback in the conference or the 6th best quarterback in the conference and still have Utah in the conversation for a conference championship if everybody else plays as well as we think they're capable of playing.
You know what that sounds like? Cam Rising. Like, he was not near the best quarterback in the Pac-12, and yet he gave Utah 2 straight Pac-12 championships. Even his second year, which was his best year as probably a football player in general, but certainly as a collegiate player, he was like, that was a loaded quarterback year for the Pac-12. He was probably the 3rd or 4th best quarterback. So you're right. Like, that's all you need from Devin Dampier, and you're gonna have a great year probably.
I'm getting Jonnu Hall.
Okay.
Look, I
dark horse pick there for sure.
That'd be amazing.
I don't know if I believe that, but that's certainly a bold pick.
Teo Johnson. Do you know how awesome it would be? If Teo ends up being, like, even in the conversation, if we have this conversation at the end of the year and I say, who is Utah's best overall player this year? We're going to say Spencer because he's going to have that kind of year. We're going to say Caleb because he's going to have that kind of year. We're probably going to say Lander. We're probably going to say maybe like a Smith Snowden type. If Teo Johnson is in that conversation, do you realize what that means for Utah football? Because now you're talking about all-star caliber performance if that scenario plays itself out at multiple positions, multiple levels on your defense. It's probably asking too much. You're probably getting spoiled if you're like, I want Logan to be a star this year, Logan Fano, I want Lander to be a star, and I want somebody in that back end to be a star. But you had that the Sugar Bowl year. You had that the Fiesta Bowl year. You had that in the Pac-12 championship years where you had a really great pass rusher and a really great linebacker and a great corner or a great safety and a great linebacker and a great D tackle or whatever. I mean, I want there to be 10 guys in the conversation for best overall player on Utah's football team. Right now, in the preseason, I can really only foresee there being like 4. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope that when we have this conversation at the end of the year, there are 10 viable candidates. And we'll assign all of you, like, text in, Jonnu Hall's your pick, 4166. All right, your book report is on why Jonnu Hall is the best player on Utah's football team, and you're going to submit it at the end of the year, and I'll give you Mammoth tickets if you get me convinced or something.
Let's go. You know who, if he has the year that he expects he's going to have will be on the short list, if not the best player on the team. Wayshawn Parker.
Yeah.
If he has the guaranteed 1,000-yard season, 1,500 that he wants to get to beat out Devontae Booker, his a fellow alum of the high school that they went to in Sacramento, like if he has that kind of those kind of numbers, he will also be a guy that people that should be considered the best player on Utah this year. Now, that's a tall order, but that's what he says he expects of himself.
If Wayshawn Parker has a Tavion Thomas season,
yeah,
because
good call.
We don't like to say this because of how it worked out for Tavion. You could make a strong case that Tavion Thomas was the best player on that team.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't him definitively, he was in the top 2 or 3.
Yeah. I mean, Devin Lloyd is probably the guy, the singular best player on that team.
Devin Lloyd was probably the guy.
But Tavion Thomas is that second, third, fourth best player on the team.
Without Tavion Thomas doing what he did, do you win at the clip that you won?
No.
Do you end up winning? No. The answer is no.
Absolutely not.
You don't get to the heights that you got to. The same is true of Devin, of course.
Yeah.
So this Utah football season, there's plenty of questions. And one of those questions is, well, there's got to be a best player on every team. Even bad teams have a best player on that team. Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, when they were at Jackson State, they were the best players on those teams, and then they stayed being the best players on the Colorado teams, and they're probably going to be, well, Travis has a chance to be one of the best players on his NFL team, right? A lot of times it just progresses like that. Utah football, there's any smattering. Like coming into that year, we didn't know Tavion was going to have that year. We knew Devin Lloyd was going to be the best player on the team, kind of.
Yeah, the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year was being like written in pen around here for him. So he was no secret he was going to have the year he had.
Right. I don't like Spencer is that guy on this year's team.
Uh-huh.
Defensively, I guess it's Lander, and when you hear the stat line that Trevor just rattled off, if he comes close to that, if he's 20 plus tackles for loss, 100 plus tackles and 5 or 6 turnovers, then he's a potential defensive player of the year in the conference.
Yeah.
Of course, your team has to have success to go with it, but that kind of performance is going to lead to team success anyway.
But I think you were right the other day when you said it feels so uncertain as to who that guy is on the defensive side. Teo Johnson's getting a lot of preseason pre-draft love at safety. So that's a guy that you got to go, okay, it could be him on defense because of what we know about Lander and his potential and what we saw in his first couple of seasons especially. We go, well, you got to consider that guy, but we don't know if it's going to be those guys. Same thing with Smith Snowden.
Tobias Merriweather is a name coming in right now on the text line.
That'd be fantastic offensive year if that's the case.
If Tobias Merriweather is the best overall player on the team this year, and look, you look at what happened last year, and like Dorian Singer is on the short list, even though statistically it didn't prove out to like jump off the page at you. He had a great year and an underperforming year for the offense. Anyway, if Tobias Merriweather is in the conversation for best player on the team overall, sign me up. Yes, please. We need it. We want it. That means Utah's in the Big 12 championship game. All right. Got to take a break. Adam Rittenberg's going to join us at the top of hour number 3 on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's Utah's number 1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 3 of the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Adam Rittenberg, senior college football writer, friend of the program. You see him on ESPN. You hear him on Sirius XM. Adam Rittenberg, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, good, OC. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Really excited that we've got college football season starting in earnest tomorrow, and then through the weekend, even into Monday night, we got college football games. Touching back on week 0, we had the Farmageddon game played overseas. A little bit of a sloppy affair, but Iowa State beats Kansas State in the ranked versus ranked matchup. In the way too early reactions to that, what do you think it says about two teams that are expected to be contenders in the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, I was happier with the second half than the first half. The first half was obviously sloppy on the field, sloppy conditions-wise. But I think both teams showed in the second half why they are among a big group of contenders in the Big 12. I wouldn't extrapolate too much from the game itself because I think both teams have some evolving to do. But, the two quarterbacks, Rocco Becht and Avery Johnson, both showed some good things, even though I don't think either would say it was their best performance, and they're going to have to be better going forward. I think the defenses, not surprisingly, showcased some good moments. And so, I don't know if we have a whole lot more clarity coming out of the game about whether they'll be in the Big 12 race, because I think both will. But certainly you'd rather be Iowa State, a team that lost a couple of receivers to the NFL, got really good tight end play. Their defense is always one of the better ones in the Big 12, and Matt Campbell made some really good calls there down the stretch to come out of that game with a win. But if you look at, I think 3 years ago Northwestern won that game, and they didn't win a game the rest of the season. Last year, Florida State goes in as a top 10 team, loses to Georgia Tech, and we're all thinking, oh my God, Georgia Tech is going to go on to big things. And they had a nice season, but it didn't necessarily yield any huge conclusions because it's such an early, odd game across the pond in Dublin.
Well, for Kansas State, I would probably, for the worried Kansas State fan, in different scenario, I'd probably say, oh, come on, ranked opponent, week 1 of the season. It's an expanded college football playoff. You don't have too much to worry about with that. But because it was a conference game, and I think the tiebreaker is going to matter so much with the parity that we expect in the Big 12, that loss could be a really damning loss when it all comes down to it.
Well, sure. And I think it's because the Big 12, there's so much parity. And, it's a league that only had one team in the playoff last year. It's talking to Brett Yormark, their commissioner at Media Days in Texas. He made it very clear that there needs to be a tier that separates, in their conference, or else they're probably going to keep having one team in the playoff. He didn't say that, but that's what I believe. And he implied it. And so, Iowa State now, they win a conference game. They're going to have Iowa coming into Ames in a couple of weeks. That's a game that they always bookmark, and they've had a very hard time beating the Hawkeyes at Jack Trice Stadium. You suddenly beat them, and then they're absolutely a team that's in the playoff mix, whereas K-State has its work cut out for itself. It's got to perform well in non-conference play. They need to get some wins now when Big 12 play resumes. And so, it does probably matter from a playoff perspective, but I'm not going to sit here, and it's not even September 1st, and count anybody out of the race yet.
Yeah, we don't have to do that yet. We have some, I think, early, like week 1 games that will have playoff implications, and, that's kind of the point of scheduling Texas, Ohio State in week 1, and, the Notre Dame, Miami one, and Florida State's got big stuff going on. Utah, UCLA to cap off that night we'll get to here in a second, but, the premier marquee matchups that are happening in week 1, which one's drawing the most attention for you?
Well, so, Texas Ohio State is drawing the most attention nationally, and understandably so. The teams met in the semifinal last year for what preseason polls are worth, and I don't put a lot of stock into them. They're 1-2 going into the season, and we're going to see them play on Saturday. I would just be very cautious, Sean, to again draw any conclusions from two teams that lost. I think it was a total of 26 players to the NFL draft. Two quarterbacks who really aren't proven, especially Julian Sayin on the Ohio State side. Ohio State's got a brand new defensive line. Texas has a pretty new look offensive line. They're very talented on the defensive side. But I think we're going to have a winner, obviously, and people are just going to freak out and say, oh, let's crown them as national champions. I just think a lot has to happen or will happen between that game and the end of the season. I actually think the game that you can really draw more conclusions from is Clemson-LSU. In that case, you have two established quarterbacks, probably the two most established quarterbacks in the country, in Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, going at one another. You have a Clemson team that brings back a lot, that much more resembles Dabo's national champion teams than some of the groups in recent years. You have LSU, ESPN, we ranked them as the number one offseason in the country in terms of who they kept and who they added through the portal. And they haven't been able to win an opening game under Brian Kelly. So that, to me, is the game that I will draw more from coming out of week one than either Ohio State, Texas, or Notre Dame, Miami. Notre Dame, Miami is fascinating because of the history and so forth, and Carson Beck making his debut for Miami. But CJ Carr's barely played at all at the college level. And so if he goes in there and struggles, I don't think we can say, oh, Notre Dame's done. Let's see what happens. And if he goes in there and plays well, maybe that'll say a little bit more about Miami. But it's week one. These are fun games. Let's embrace them. Let's celebrate them. But let's try not to overreact too much to them.
I spent probably way too much time on the show this week talking about Spencer Fano's placement on the ESPN Top 100 list. All the 100, and the reason I spent so much time on it is because if we went back through the annals of Utah football history, I don't think when we're talking about a preseason, there's been a player that people look at and say, yeah, that's a top 10 player in America, regardless of position, regardless of year. Certainly guys who've been respected, probably top 25 players. But I don't think that we've ever come to this level of hype about an individual player, and I guess it would be a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman at a place like Utah. But still, I don't know, like what kind of significance does this hold for? He's the highest ranked offensive lineman on that list. He's the only guy who's not at like a traditional obvious power that's on that list, and he's our guy at Utah. What should we take from it?
Well, I think it speaks to how much respect he has, certainly among our group that did the ranking, but also among coaches and others who we rely on to sort of shape these rankings. And I think if there was a deficiency in our overall ranking is we didn't have enough offensive linemen. Probably should have had 3 or 4 more in the top 100. But we had Spencer Fano at number 7. So, that's a pretty lofty place for a guy who, played right tackle last year and did some great things, is an offensive line anchor, but, he's still, maybe not as known nationally as the guys ahead of him on the list. Guys like Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and Anthony Hill Jr., that are playing at programs that made the playoff last year. So I think it's safe to say, I know Devin Dampier and others might occupy that role, but I would say, Sean, that he's the face of Utah's team this year. And if Utah bounces back and is contending for the Big 12 championship, like a lot of your listeners hope, it's going to be because of guys like Spencer and the defensive linemen and some of the other offensive linemen, in addition to Dampier and some of the others who are on that team. Because if Utah's at its best, that means its offensive line and defensive line are among the best in college football, and they have a chance to really be that this year.
Adam Rittenberg for a couple more minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Let's focus in on this Utah football team. They start the season with UCLA. Now, both of these teams are going to be trotting out first-year transfer quarterbacks. One of them at Utah has his offensive coordinator who came with him, and for Nico, it'll be Indiana's Oltino Sunseri's. I think we graduated the same year, maybe he and I. But in any case, a premier matchup of sorts. Certainly, UCLA's got the advantage in name value there. What do you anticipate from this matchup, especially offensively, given those variables for the new quarterbacks, new school, and in one case, new coordinator?
Yeah, this is a really exciting game that kind of caps off the first Saturday of the regular season. And, I think the quarterbacks, the contrasting styles, their paths to this point are fascinating. In Nico's case, how quickly has he adapted and how have his teammates adapted to him? With Tino Sinceri now moving into that primary coordinator role for the first time. I think there's more certainties on the Utah side because, Devin Dampier has been there throughout the offseason. Jason Beck is certainly a familiar name if you follow college football in the state of Utah. And I think he's certainly capable of elevating this offense against the UCLA defense that I have questions about, in the sense of, they've been one of the better defenses in the Big Ten the last couple of years, but they cleaned out their staff. It's almost a completely new staff other than their coordinator. They lost their top interior lineman, Jay Toya, to the NFL. I don't know what to expect. A ton of transfers in the back end. So I think there's an opportunity here for Utah to score early, to take control of this game, maybe take some of the energy out of that stadium, even though it's not a place that's usually really raucous. If there's ever a time for UCLA fans to come out and support their team, it's to see the debut of Nico Iamaleava, who they've essentially made the face of the program. I mean, he's the guy that arrived in April, and he's already at Media Day, and they're building their team around him. So, UCLA will, I think, have one of its better crowds. Utah fans always travel well. I think it's going to be a fun atmosphere, and certainly the two quarterbacks are at the center of the stage.
It's the first game of a campaign that I think is going to be Kyle Whittingham's last year, and I think is going to be a year that Utah has a good chance to kind of restore itself to a more rightful place in at least the Big 12 power structure. Last year was a disaster because of all the injuries, and obviously they had great years at the end of the Pac-12 run. And I think you and I have talked about this before, the Big 12 is going to be characterized by this parity, and there's not a real blue blood brand. Utah certainly can't fill the role of blue blood, but they are a nationally respected brand. Arizona State's kind of this upstart. Kansas State is a holdover. Oklahoma State's a holdover that had a lot of success in the previous iteration of the Big 12. From the conference perspective, if Brett Yormark's dreams come true and you have a couple of teams that can kind of separate themselves and be the playoff representatives, can be the elite brands in 2025 and maybe beyond, is it in the best interest of the conference if Utah is one of those, if Arizona State is one of those? Would it be better if it was their heritage brands like the ones I mentioned before? How do you view that?
That's a great question. I think it just depends on how many of the heritage brands you need to be great, if that's even possible, and how much of it is you relying on this new western flank of the conference. Because Utah has shown it can compete nationally. BYU has a national history. Arizona State is this program we've waited decades for maybe this moment where they've won the Big 12. They bring back a lot of great pieces. They're recruiting well. And they have a homegrown coach who wants them to be great in Kenny Dillingham. In my lifetime, I can't really remember that type of true, genuine momentum at Arizona State because it's always kind of gone the other way. Eventually, it might, but I think that they look at the league looks at that program as having a real chance. So I think it's the legacy programs. Do you want Oklahoma State, which maybe at the end of Mike Gundy's run, are they going to get back? TCU, a program that played for the national championship a couple of years ago, I think it's going to be really good. Not enough people are talking about Josh Hoover, their quarterback, on a national level. And then is the Texas Tech thing real? It's very much a championship or bust mentality this year because you think about the number of players who will be off this team in 2026. It's a lot. It's significant. And, are they going to keep investing? It seems like they will. And maybe that's a program that can get over the hump because of the money that's behind it, not because of the history or any other factor. But I do tend to look more at that group on the western side of the conference to say there's a lot more evidence here recently and historically, especially when I'm talking about the two schools in your state, that these programs can rise up and be sustained national success stories.
Adam, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Enjoy week 1, and we'll chat again soon.
Sounds good, OC. You too. Thanks for having me.
Adam Rittenberg, one of the best in the business, senior college football writer at ESPN, friend of the program. He's always gracious with his time. He's an encyclopedia of college football knowledge. And look, I wanted his perspective on that because he's a Midwestern guy, right? He's a national writer, but he's a national writer who takes his job very seriously, so he knows kind of the power structure of every conference. He pays attention to every conference. He knows what's at stake in the Big 12, not only from the football perspective, but from the brand recognition and the keeping up with the Joneses, and in the eventual second round, third round, whatever it would be, of conference realignment. So I asked that question of if you're Brett Yormark, if you're sitting there at conference headquarters, who do you want to be the best team in this Big 12 conference? Do you want Texas Tech, like Adam just mentioned? Do you want Texas Tech to be a national championship contender? Well, let's take that out of it. Erase that. A conference champion and a playoff team that is just comprised of a bunch of free agents that you're a mercenary squad. I mean, look, Texas Tech has had its moments in the national spotlight. It was mostly Mike Leach who made that happen, right?
Michael Crabtree.
Go back to the Kingsbury Crabtree days. Cool, fun,
Yeah.
Great, good to see. But is that what you want to see that if you're the commissioner, if you're in the office and you're like, we can get national fans behind this team. We know the BYU narrative. There are a bunch of people in every state that want to see BYU win. BYU is a hard sell from a national, I will follow this team standpoint. I think Texas Tech is also. I think Utah is also. Kansas State is respected. Iowa State is respected. Kansas has the basketball recognition and that kind of thing. I just don't know. Is there any team that the country could get behind the way that it has gotten behind in weird ways? It's gotten behind Oregon because of their kind of new kid on the block, upstart,
cool uniforms,
branding,
yeah.
Oregon has a national presence.
Fun style of play under Chip Kelly.
Right. And they've built that momentum gradually, and it's not going to happen overnight. But Oregon had emerged for the Pac-12 conference as a national brand that people were at least curious about.
And that you didn't expect before it happened, really.
And like weirdly, I think there were some years where Stanford, everyone was just like, well, that's a team that's easy to root for. It's a bunch of smart guys, future leaders of America.
And not like fast break on turf that Chip Kelly's Oregon's teams were, but like still a fun, tough brand of football. Andrew Luck was incredible to watch in college.
They did a
at the
good
beginning
job
of that
of making
run.
Intellectual brutality.
Yeah,
they called it. They made it like it's like, hey, isn't this
good
cool?
Branding? Yeah,
isn't it cool? Like we're this hard nosed team, but we're also the smartest guys in the building. Like I think people got behind Stanford a little bit. Now I'm not delusional. Okay, I don't think that Stanford was ever on the level of like Michigan and Texas, because a good litmus test is you go to a Nike outlet wherever you're at, okay? If you go to a Nike outlet in Massachusetts, you're going to find Oregon Ducks gear.
Yeah.
If you go to a Nike outlet in Texas, you're going to find Oregon Ducks gear. You're also going to find Michigan stuff. You're going to find Texas stuff. You're going to, like, if you go to a Dick's Sporting Goods anywhere in the country, there's like a handful of brands that you can buy stuff there. If you go in Utah, they've got BYU, they've got Utah, they even have some high school stuff. I was just there the other day.
But you also have those other brands.
Yeah, but you have those other brands, right? I don't know that any Big 12 brand even has an opportunity to get to that spot.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I think that going to your original question, which school, which brand does Brett Yormark root for, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
I think Texas Tech is a good call because of it would be validating that, hey, we have money in the Big 12 and and we can do something with money in the Big 12. I think that's a good call from that perspective. Other than that, like maybe it's Arizona State. Maybe it's Kansas, because Kansas is a national collegiate athletic brand, even though no one has any expectations for them most years in football. But if they were to be really good in football, that would be that would be a brand that Brett Yormark and the conference could really get behind.
I mean, TCU was in the national championship, as Adam mentioned. TCU has been now 2 decades of really, really good football, and it's in a major, major metroplex.
Yeah, TCU's a pretty good call, too.
Happens to be where the conference headquarters and conference championship game are, so maybe
it's those 3 schools, OC, or 4 schools. I don't know. And unfortunately, I don't think Utah and BYU are near the top of that list.
And now, from a conversational standpoint, because there's really 2 different things here. There's like the business perspective of the conference office that is probably like, hey, Utah and BYU, they can only help us so much. Arizona State, it's a wild card for me. I don't know. But, again, that's a fast-rising metro. That's a big town. It's, 4 major sports teams.
It's a good tradition in athletics, at least not totally consistent in any of them, but a pretty good tradition.
It's a place where people for a long time, like Adam Rittenberg said, we've been waiting. We've been waiting for Arizona State to be something special, now
they've been good, not great.
Something special. It's like people have been like, "Oh, hey, we think this could happen, and now it's happening." That's a story people are going to want to follow.
They'll latch on to that.
There's different ways you can look at this from a conversational, like, talking heads are actually going to sound good saying it perspective. Utah's not a bad team to emerge here because you got your Joel Klatz, you got your Josh Pates, you've got the whole crew at ESPN that has some level of respect for what Kyle Whittingham has built at the University of Utah. Very few of those individuals, by the way, know jack bleep about Kenny Dillingham and the path that has gotten him here. Because he was a coordinator in the Pac-12. They weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
They weren't paying attention to Arizona State until last year. Whereas if you said, hey, give me the best players from the last 10 years at Utah or the last 20 years at Utah, those guys recited those names.
Yeah.
They've seen those teams, and they can always, even if they fail at the homework, they can always say, well, it's Kyle Whittingham and everybody else. The players don't, it's Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
You don't know that about Kenny Dillingham yet, although I think that's true. So, I don't know. Who does the conference want to win? Whoever can be an 11-win team.
Yeah.
Whoever can be a 10-win team. A 9-win conference champion means we once again, and I think that's what's going to happen, we once again have one Big 12 team in the eventual college football playoff. So I think if you're Brett Yormark and you're the rest of that conference office, you're saying, who do I want to emerge? I want the team that can beat Texas in a playoff game.
It really does feel like Brett Yormark and the conference office are free agents as far as who they might be rooting for. It's like, hey, whoever proves they can be best and consistently the best, we will get behind them. Which is the right answer for every conference office.
Sure.
You should be behind whoever is your champion.
Yeah.
But
like in the Pac-12, you knew they wanted Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, and maybe Stanford could be good for them at some point. But when like the Pac-12 office never wanted Utah to be as good as Utah became. It didn't make sense for them from a viewership standpoint. But it just happened. So they got behind it because they had to get behind it because you can't fight against the inevitable.
We're not, and listen, I know you're sports conspiracy theory guy, OC, but no, we're not. You're not. You bringing that up is not to say that they did anything to manipulate. Hey, this is how Utah lost this. You can't do it. But if you're being honest with yourself, you would realize that Utah was not the conference's favorite school throughout its history, and it's probably not in this Big 12, but then it's a different situation because the Big 12's like, we have like 10 teams that can win it. We just want, so we'll make that our flagship school happily, whichever team shows they can consistently win this thing and keep us in the national conversation. Absolutely.
All right, when the tents go up, the prices go down. ESPN 792.1 FM are at Wasatch Front Kia Thursday, August 28th. That's tomorrow. Enter all day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for your chance to win a 75-quart Lone Mountain cooler. We got some giveaways going on at Wasatch Front Kia tomorrow.
Yeah, Spence will be on remote there 2 to 6 too during that 12 hours that they'll have that giveaway open for you.
I like that. All right. I don't know if you saw this already, James, but a very important personality, I should say, in the Big 12 is retiring ahead of football season. It's going to be tough to adjust to this. I'll tell you who I'm talking about next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, we're going to be giving away a family 4-pack to the Utah State Fair in about 10 minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Wanted to let you know, though, that we got a retirement happening in the Big 12 Conference that isn't getting enough attention. Ralphie Six is being retired at the University of Colorado.
Ralphie Six, bigger Big 12 story than Taylor Swift 12. Her 12th album.
Ralphie Six is all the Ralphies are female buffalo. I don't know if people knew this. Officially, her name is Ember, and this is a buffalo that has not been doing the Ralphie thing for very long. Being retired because of a lack of excitement for running. Ralphie Six doesn't do the run very well. Like, the whole thing is that the buffalo is supposed to come storming out of that little trailer, and the handlers on the specially made harness that are scholarship athletes at the University of Colorado are supposed to have kind of a hard time corralling this barely domesticated animal. This is a wild creature that is actually raised in extreme comfort on a ranch at an undisclosed location nearby Boulder, Colorado. I don't know if you knew this, but this particular Ralphie, who I remember when this particular Ralphie made her first run, she was like a baby. It was like not a baby, but like an adolescent buffalo. Like, didn't even have the full horns. Didn't even look like an adult buffalo yet. The first time they trotted her out, and maybe they did it too early because she doesn't like to run.
She's sitting in the outfield trying to catch butterflies instead of running.
This is Ferdinand the Bull, who just wants to pick flowers. This Ralphie doesn't like to run, so Ralphie Six, a.k.a. Ember, is being retired by the University of Colorado.
Your next book going to be a children's book based on this? Ralphie Six, Ferdinand the Bull of Buffalo?
The Ralphie who didn't want to run. You're welcome, whatever children's author actually puts that out.
I'm saying you should do it, OC. Known author.
Yeah.
Sean O'Connell.
I'm known by at least 11 people as an author.
Or maybe Mike Yam can do it. He's
got
written
published
children's books.
Ralphie didn't want to run. How funny is that?
That could be the name, actually. Ralphie didn't want to run.
They have to train a new buffalo. They have to select a new Ralphie because this one is lazy.
Oh, man.
I like that.
Coach Prime didn't train her up well enough, then, it sounds like. No, it's not on Prime.
It might be.
Maybe it is on Prime.
Does he
have a blind spot for Ember like he did for Shador and Shiloh?
Is it a coincidence that when Deion Sanders shows up for the first time, they have to prematurely retire a Ralphie? I don't know.
We were talking off air.
He makes the buffalo too comfortable, doesn't want to run?
Yeah. We were talking off air before this segment, and I was assuming that this Ralphie was just getting too up there in age. And so I asked you how long they live. They live about 25 years in captivity, right? Yeah. So I'm like, so this one must be 20-something years old. No. She's probably still in her prime. Just doesn't like to run.
An indifference to running is how they characterize it in the official announcement.
Indifference to running.
Due to an indifference to running, typical of many mammals, both four-legged and two-legged, it was determined that it was Ember's best interest, based on her disposition, to focus on relaxing strolls on the pasture, which is her favorite hobby. Oh, man. Ember.
Love that.
Is this like
I also have an indifference to running, by the way.
When you're the GM and you hire the wrong head coach, is this like whoever was in charge of selecting this particular buffalo calf?
Oh, they're out.
They're just like, sorry, you're fired now.
You're out. We have a new buffalo. We have a new Ralphie GM.
Okay, so here's what I hate. In the interim, the Colorado Buffaloes football team will take the field without the university's beloved live mascot.
Boo.
There's a plan in place. Ralphie 7 has been training but will not run when they take on Georgia Tech which is a Friday night game on ESPN.
Speaking things that would never happen at Texas, they would never go a season without a Bevo, would they?
I don't think so.
No. Georgia wouldn't go a season without an UGA.
Reveille at Texas A&M. Like, you got to have your live mascots.
If you have a live mascot, you have to have them every season. You do.
Ralphie 6 will now move into a companion buffalo role. I want to ride an airplane with a companion buffalo.
Absolutely.
She's a therapy bison. And no, you're not allowed to ask. How great would that be?
I bought 4 seats for her. What's the problem?
Yeah. Sir, this animal does not fit down the jetway. How dare you? Discrimination!
Actually puts us over the weight limit for the plane.
All right. And I don't always like to be an alarmist, but I'm going to play alarmist right here. This is important sound I want to play for you from Pate State. Okay, this is Josh Pate, friend of the station, talking about something you may not have noticed if you watched the Farmageddon game. Not even one time on the broadcast was it referred to as Farmageddon.
And you got folks who have no clue which way is up when it comes to tradition and pageantry. You got folks wearing school colors that have no clue what those colors represent. And I'm telling you, as much as you may detest some of these people, you do not detest them enough. Nobody hates college football more than some of the people that try and run college football. The types of people we're talking about here are not coaches. They are not media executives, even in this case. No, it's your good old-fashioned campus sweater vest. The kind of people who you don't see a whole lot. You don't see them because they wait until mid-first quarter to arrive at the stadium, and they leave mid-fourth quarter, so they don't have to rub shoulders with you. They will pose with the concession food, but then they toss it in the trash after you put the phone away because they're still full from brunch at the country club. Their job exists because of you, but they can't stand you. They have nothing in common with you. They could not care less about you. And they look at a name like Farmageddon, and they say, oh, it's got farm in it. Farming? Who farms? Farmers? That's who farms. Check your fridge. Check it. Where do you think that came from? They don't know real people, and they don't want it to be any other way. They got nothing in common with you. And it's okay if they exist outside college football, but every now and then, one of these folks weasels their way into a decision-making position in college athletics, and they look around and they say, oh, good, I can make a lot of money over here, but I don't like this world. It doesn't look like a world that I want to have anything to do with it. And so what do? Do they leave? No. No, instead they try and fundamentally change everything about this world. Things that we would consider great, they consider a nuisance. Rivalry game names being one of those. And I am here to tell you that as Pate State Investigates looked around this issue earlier today, I uncovered some troubling news. While there may be nameless, faceless sweater vests at Iowa State and or Kansas State that would like to do away with the rivalry game name Farmageddon, that's not the only rivalry game name that is under threat, even in the Big 12. Let them know what college football means. When they throw around those words, tradition and pageantry, just because they focus group well, let them know they mean more than just the needle ticked up in their focus group meter. Those aren't just tested words. Those words mean something to people. Culture, ways of life, that stuff means something to people like us. And so I would recommend you speak up long and loud on this sort of thing, or else you may find yourself on the defensive.
It's that last 25 seconds or so that I wanted you to pay closest attention to. He said it, plain as day. This is not the only rivalry game whose name is on the chopping block in the Big 12 Conference. We know who he's talking about. And this BYU Utah football game, which we are so lucky to have back, will, for me, be called the Holy War until the end of time. It's not actual holy war. We know that. It's a euphemism. It is a colloquialism. It is a nickname that does not have anything to do with actual real violence that happens in the name of religion elsewhere in the world. It's just the name of the game. Just like the Civil War Oregon State game doesn't have anything to do with the Civil War.
That's one that in how many years ago they kind of were
got rid of it
about.
We
don't want to be called this anymore.
Guess what they did though? They brought it back. It was we all, I think it was COVID time. We all had way too much time on our hands to be worrying about things that we don't need to worry about. We started manufacturing problems that don't exist, and no one was better at that than the personalities that Josh Pate was referring to in their sweater vests on campuses. And they were just like, okay, can't call it the Civil War game anymore. It's too good. People are going to be so offended. And it's a scary reference. And so they said, you can't do it. And guess what? 2 years later, it's back.
Yeah.
And that's Holy War it is, okay?
I mean, I shudder to think what would happen if we continued to call Washington State the Apple Cup. Like,
and vegetarians are so offended.
I don't see one apple on the field.
Yeah, the Territorial Cup in Arizona. It's not a territory anymore. It's a state. All right, stop it. They're called what they're called. All right, it's like trying to give yourself a nickname. You can't. The nickname is what your friends called you when you were in 4th grade, and it stuck, okay? Tiny, okay? Booby Hobbs, okay? Whatever. It's just your name. It doesn't offend anybody. It's not intended to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yes, Skid Mark. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Skid.
Okay. That would hit too close to home for poor James. Look. There have been instances in the past where the stuff shirts, the worry warts, the power brokers on local campuses have made decisions against positive fan interaction and experience and uniform options that are based on political correctness and sensitivity and things like that, and are totally unnecessary. Totally unnecessary, okay? I know this. I've seen this. I got illegal access to see some things that were just like, why did they not let this happen? Why did they take this away from us? And it was because of this level of sensitivity that makes absolutely no sense to anyone. And we gotta push back. We got to say, no, that's not what we want. Don't protect us from these manufactured sensibilities. We are fine. Everyone's okay. So let's, give us the cool uniform. Give us the cool pattern. Keep the circle and feather, the drum and feather. Nobody, the Ute, that you can walk into the football facility and see the renewal that happens every year. We are happy with you using the Ute name. Thank you for representing it well. We have a good partnership. Keep it going. All right?
Yeah.
Holy War it is. Got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to give away a family 4-pack to the Utah State Fair with a little topical trivia. Hopefully you were listening to the beginning of the show, because that's where the number is going to come from. It's Utah's #1 sports talk, the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Family 4-pack to the Utah State Fair, happening September 4th through September 14th at the Fair Park. If you could answer this question at 877-353-0700. Last year, we went over this at the beginning of the show. Last year, how many of the top 25 total offenses, the top 25 rankings of total offense, how many of those teams ran more than they passed? I'm talking in terms of yardage. Of the top 25 offenses in the country last year, how many produced more rush yardage than pass yardage? We talked about it at the very beginning of the show, spitting off of our own question about how should Utah balance out the play calling this year, the production on offense this year with John Beck, Devin Dampier, etc.
Jason Beck.
Did I say John?
He said John. Utah
Jason,
fans wringing their hands.
Jason, I am so sorry.
By the way, Jason Beck, so I was looking up New Mexico's stats last year, and I did a double take because they listed head coach Jason Eck, which is the new head coach's name. But I had to look. I'm like, wait, how'd they get the head coach's name wrong? It's Jason Beck's not. Jason Beck's not the head. Oh, Jason Eck.
Jason Eck is the new head coach.
Isn't that wild? You lose a coordinator, Jason Beck. You hire head coach Jason Eck. There you go.
Spence is live at Dish Pros today from 2 to 6. That's 486 West, 4800 South in Salt Lake City. Go down, tell him that OC sent you there just to annoy him.
Yeah.
Be like, OC sent me. He'll be like, okay. But
Spence didn't send you?
No. OC sent me to see Spence. Dish Pros.
Tell Ryan that OC sent you. Ryan at the Dish Pros, the friend of the station. Let's see what kind of reaction that would take.
If you didn't catch the show live today, catch us on the ESPN 700 app, the on-demand section at ESPN700sports.com. Tell your smart speakers, play ESPN, and just leave it on all day. Let's do it, people. All right. Tomorrow's a big one. We got our first Coordinator's Corner. Is that right?
No, sorry. That's
Friday.
Friday.
Okay, we got Devin Dampier, though.
And the first conversation with Eric Weddle.
And our boy Dub joining us tomorrow.
So huge. Thursdays are going to be one of your favorite days, if not your favorite day of the college football season here on the Sean O'Connell Show with those two guys.
All right, that was fun. Let's do it again tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.